celebrating our 25th season as the national game of the week. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball.
Fenway Park in Boston. The Boston Red Sox, the Baltimore Orioles. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Division rivals meeting in the rubber match of a 3-game series, with the Orioles winning on Friday night. This is a 4-game series, excuse me. Of course, they've got the game tomorrow on Patriots Day. The Red Sox winning yesterday. They play tonight, and then they play again early tomorrow, 11:05 Eastern time here on Patriots Day. Of course, the Boston Marathon will be run again tomorrow morning. The lineup, cards being exchanged at home plate on a chilly night. The temperature down in the low 40s, maybe heading down to the 30s before the night is done, as we get ready for baseball here at Fenway, between the Orioles, who are 8-8, and the Red Sox, who are 8-10, in a very tightly bunched American League East division, and an emotionally charged night here at Fenway after the pregame ceremony as the Red Sox take the field. Jake Peavy will be on the mound tonight for the Red Sox, and a look at the lineup that he is going to face tonight. The Baltimore Oriole lineup is presented by Taco Bell, and it's an Oriole lineup that relied on the home run a lot last year. They hit more home runs than any team in baseball. A year ago, they've hit only 9 so far this season in 16 games, and a guy that they're looking to get more power from, and you know it. Chris Davis hit 53 home runs last year, but Crucky so far just 1 this season.
Yeah, but this is one of those things where at this point last year in the season he had 6 home runs, only 1 like you said, Dan. But yeah, you talked to Buck Showalter. He said if that's what my biggest worry is, we're going to be in good shape the rest of this year.
He was an all-star last year. He won a Silver Slugger Award last year. He led the majors in home runs, extra base hits, RBIs, and only a sensational season by Miguel Cabrera prevented Davis from winning the MVP. He hit him to left, he hit him to center, he hit him to right, he hit him at home, he hit him on the road. I mean, he's a big, strong guy who can hit him out of any ballpark. And Chris Davis had a sensational 2013. He will be facing Jake Peavy, veteran right-hander, and a guy who has won 132 games in his career. He has won a Cy Young, did that with San Diego back in 2007. Does not have any decisions so far this year, but he's pitched pretty well in all 3 starts.
He's pitched really well. When we talked to John Farrell before the game, he said the thing they like about him is he's challenging guys inside, righties and lefties. He's come up with a cutter. And Jake Peavy, like Ubaldo Jimenez, they now have to be, they had to
reinvent
themselves. Thank Dan, I'm a little emotional today. But reinvent themselves as pitchers. They don't throw 97 anymore. Neither one of them do. So now they have to move it in and out. They have to cut it. They have to sink it and try to get outs that way. And Jake Peavy so far has been masterful this year in his 3 starts.
And it is Easter weekend, and people celebrating in style here at Fenway. Hope everybody's having a great holiday weekend wherever you're joining us from. Glad you're with us at Fenway, as we've got the Orioles and Red Sox for you tonight here on Sunday Night Baseball. And Buck Showalter wanted clarification on something from Ted Barrett, the home plate umpire, to Mark Carlson, the third base umpire. He seems content, and we are ready to go here in Boston.
I don't mean Buck's content.
That's
just because he ran back to the dugout.
Nick Markakis is going to lead it off for Buck Showalter and the Orioles. The right fielder's hitting .290 so far this season. Jake Peavy is ready to go, and we're underway here at Fenway. Markakis seems like he's been an Oriole forever. He's been a lifer with the Orioles, and as you can see, he's been hot lately. He'll be followed by Nelson Cruz, a newcomer to Baltimore this year, and then Chris Davis. They play him slightly to pull on the infield, slightly to hit the ball the other way in the outfield. As he takes up and in, a ball and a strike.
Well, that's the pitch right there that Jake Peavy has to get it down in the strike zone. It's that fastball he's trying to start at the left-hander's hip and break it over the plate. That one there he got a little high on.
Peavy has been with the Padres, the White Sox, and the Red Sox in his career. And, of course, he's very familiar with his catcher, A.J. Przinsky. They spent 3 years together on the south side of Chicago. Pops him up in foul territory. This is Brock Holt over near the seats and just enough room to make the play. Brock Holt's been a bit of a sensation offensively the last couple of days for the Red Sox since getting recalled from the minors.
He made a couple really good plays coming in on balls yesterday, and ground balls, making strong throws to first. And that one over there, not as difficult, Dan. Just kind of get to the fence and look around and hope no one tackles you when you get over there.
Good to have that play at home. Here's Nelson Cruz. First pitch swinging. High fly ball to left field. Gomes will turn and watch it go. A home run for Nelson Cruz on the first pitch that he sees from Jake Peavy. Third of the season for Cruz and the Orioles. Strike first.
Well, Nick Markakis swung at the first pitch, and I guess that's the game plan against Jake Peavy. But you see there, A.J. Przinsky setting out of the strike zone away, and Peavy just brings that ball back over the center of the plate. Pretty much a middle-in pitch. And I tell you, when he hit it, I thought it was too high to go out, and I saw Johnny Gomes kind of circle under it. And all of a sudden, he just turned his back, and it just kept going.
There's Chris Davis to take ball one. I was with you watching Gomes. He looked like he might have a play on that ball, and it just kept carrying over the monster. Here's Davis now. And a little inside for ball two. Cruz with Texas, and was signed to a one-year deal by the Orioles in the offseason. Signed late, signed in February. A guy who, of course, was suspended last year, PEDs, 50 games, and you could hear some yelling from the stands here in Boston after he hit that home run. A guy who's averaged about 27, 28 homers a year over the last 4 or 5 years. And a dangerous hitter in that 2 spot. Davis takes 3-1. Davis was a guy last year, as we mentioned, strong enough to hit the ball out to any part of any park. Did a lot of his damage last year hitting the ball hard the other way. And he'll take ball 4. A bit of a rocky start here for Peavy.
I'm sure this isn't the way he wanted to start it out, but so far so good. He makes a good pitch here against Adam Jones, gets a double play, 1 run. I think the Red Sox can handle 1 run today.
Here's Jones, cleanup hitter, hitting .274. Last year hit 33 homers, drove in 108, in addition to playing Gold Glove defense out in center field.
And he will swing.
And he does.
He went to what, like August last year before he walked or something like that? Unbelievable. He said he was trying to go the whole season without walking.
Last year he only walked unintentionally 21 times in 160 games. Played almost every day and walked only 21 unintentional walks. 0-2. But you can't argue with the production.
A lot of different ways to get things done, Dan. And Adam Jones is not what you would call your prototypical, millennium hitter. He swings at everything, and if you throw it in the strike zone, he's liable to hit it hard. If you throw it out of the strike zone, he's liable to swing and miss or hit it hard too. But if I'm Peavy right here, I'm going down and away, try to get a rollover grounder to Bogaerts.
We left it right over the heart of the plate, and Jones lines it into center field. A base hit, a pitch that Peavy would want to have back at 0-2.
Yeah, that's not where Jake wants to throw that pitch, but when you watched Adam Jones' first 2 swings, they were pull-off swings where he's trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Now with 2 strikes, he's staying on it, just trying to shoot the ball the other way. If that pitch is down, you have a chance of either hitting a ground ball or a line drive to Pedroia or to Bogaerts in the middle of the infield. But elevated like that, kind of an easy ball to just shoot into right center field for a base hit.
So a run in on the homer by Cruz. All 3 of his home runs this year, incidentally, coming against the Red Sox. 2 on with a 1 out for the dangerous Matt Wieters. Baltimore catcher, another one of their most important players, a switch hitter with power, Gold Glove winner, and a guy who Buck Showalter just loves. He is the captain of that pitching staff. He is what you want your catcher to be, the guy who takes charge of that pitching staff.
Well, you got a guy that's 6'5" up at the plate. What do you want to do? You don't want to throw it out over the plate so he can get to it. Try to jam him like Jake Peavy's done with those first 2 pitches, and it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to go back in there again.
And there's a base hit into right field. Davis is getting the wave around third. He will come in to score. The throw is cut. Around to third comes Jones, and it's 2-0 Orioles.
Well, early in the game, the Orioles are jumping on Jake Peavy when he misses his location. You see he's kind of angry with himself. But here's the 0-2 pitch, another 0-2 base hit. And that's another one that A.J. Brzezinski wanted it inside off the plate, and it cuts back over the center of the plate, and he just hits it past Mike Napoli. We know Jake Peavy can
beat himself up on the mound.
Little bit emotional out there. Needs to foster those aggressions, Dan, into a quality pitch right here and try to get out of this inning.
The batter, J.J. Hardy. Hardy, as you can see, has had virtually no success against Peavy. That hit, the one hit in 17 at bats, came in his second ever at bat against Peavy. So he is 0 for his last 15. And he can hurt you. He's got some pop. He hit 25 home runs last year, 22 the year before that, 30 the year before that.
Buck Showalter told me today that easily the best athlete on their team. Tennis playing parents, I guess he's a scratch golfer.
Right center. Back is Sizemore to make the catch, and an easy tag and score for Jones. Sac fly makes it 3-0. They're coming off a win yesterday, the Red Sox, but they have been struggling and not the way they wanted to get this one going on this cold Sunday evening here in Boston. The Red Sox, the World Series champions from a year ago, but just 8-10 so far this year, and really scuffling offensively for much of the young season. This is David Lowe of the Orioles, the left fielder, formerly of the Kansas City Royals, a guy who was known as a very good defender. As you can see, has not done a whole lot with the bat so far this year. 4 for 32.
But he has a triple. It's great that I can read, isn't it? It's a new tool.
Yeah,
it's a new tool
good.
I just got.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's a new app on your phone.
Been working on it. I've been
stuff.
working on that reading thing. Oh, my goodness.
Now, that's more up your alley. That's an app you need.
Well,
that's an app you have.
I'm a Rhodes Scholar in that department. Might leave you.
I know. I was thinking. I knew exactly what you were thinking. 1 ball, 2 strikes on Lowe. A home run by Cruz, an RBI single by Wieters, a sacrifice fly by Hardy, and a rough first inning for Peavy. Two and two. Even when Peavy's pitched well this year, and he has pitched well in his first 3 starts, he still kind of had the pitch count up there. In his last start against the White Sox, he went 6 innings and threw 113 pitches. As you can see, he's already thrown 23 through a difficult first inning here. And a fly ball to right field. This ball is pretty well hit. Nava's going back. At the wall, he makes the basket catch. But Peavy gives up 3, upset with himself, and an early lead for Ubaldo Jimenez and the Orioles here at Fenway. Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell Breakfast. Wake up, live Mas. And in part by Nissan, innovation that excites. And Travelocity, the world is waiting. Go and smell the roses. Bottom first, Fenway. Dan Schulman, John Kruk, Buster Olney. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. The Red Sox come up already trailing 3-0. And a Boston team that led the majors in so many offensive categories last season is right down near the bottom of the American League in so many offensive categories so far this season. They've only scored 4 runs or more once in their last only once in their last 10 games. And, they missed Jacoby Ellsbury. I think that goes without saying. And Nava's numbers are down. Gomes' numbers are down. Pedroia's numbers aren't great. He's been playing with a sore wrist. So they have not been their typical Boston self so far offensively this season as Grady Sizemore takes a strike. Sizemore, a newcomer to Boston after missing all of the last 2 seasons. Facing Ubaldo Jimenez. Jimenez off to a rough start. Three starts, 3 losses, and an ERA over 7. For a guy, Crucky, who as an Indian in September was American League Pitcher of the Month, went 4-0 with an ERA just over 1.
Well, I just think when you look at Ubaldo Jimenez pitch, the mechanics sometimes can get really out of whack, and it takes him a while to get it figured out. That's why he's so much better in the second half than he is in the first half.
And March/April, those have been the worst months of Jimenez's career. Sizemore, a tremendous player in his heyday when he was at his healthiest with the Cleveland Indians, and he's given the Red Sox something to think about through spring training and into the early weeks of the season.
Yeah, and believe me, they would love for him to take this leadoff spot and run with it, because they have yet to find anyone to man that spot to get on base enough times consistently to stay there.
Inside, 2-2. Ellsbury, or Sizemore rather, has started in all 3 outfield spots, 6 times in left, 7 in center, once in right, a natural center fielder, but they've got Jackie Bradley Jr. And when Bradley's in the lineup, he's in center field. So Sizemore's been moving around a little bit, both in the batting order and in the outfield.
And this is what you deal with Ubaldo Jimenez. If you're the pitching coach, Dave Wiles or Buck Showalter, he'll get it. If he gets ahead, you never know when the count's going to come back to even. And now, Grady Sizemore's in the driver's seat.
Just low for ball 4. So the leadoff man is aboard for Dustin Pedroia. Pedroia hitting .250 so far. Had a cortisone shot on that left wrist several days ago. Missed a couple days. Now he's back. John Farrell says they're seeing him pull the ball a little bit more. Pull the ball with a little more authority since then. This guy doesn't come out of the lineup without a fight.
He told me today if it doesn't get any better, he's going to cut it off and play with one hand. So that wouldn't shock me.
Diving back in, Sizemore's got 1 steal so far this season.
Everything you want in a ball player, Dustin Pedroia brings. Energy, hustle, plays every day.
When we sit and talk to opposing managers, they might talk about Pedroia more than any other player that they, in games that we're doing, that we see over the course of the season. They love him.
Well, Buck Showalter told me today, he said if I had 9 of him, I'd win every game. I don't know if Pedroia can pitch, but.
Runner goes. Wieters throws from his knees and safe at second. What an acrobatic attempt out there by the second baseman, Jonathan Scope, to make a tag, but sliding in under it safely is Sizemore.
That's the thing with Ubaldo Jimenez. They tried to get him to quicken his times to home. He went from 1.6 to 1.4, 1.3. Still not as quick as you would like. You'd like to see him about 1.1, 1.2. But, Grady gets a great jump. You look at Wieters right there throwing from his knees. And, yeah, that's a tough one right there. That's a, you don't want to know. That could be a reviewable play if they watch this. But Too late. The pitch has already been thrown.
And a strike taking 2-2 on Pedroia.
I mean, a 6'5" catcher throwing from his knees. That's astounding.
Late on it, he hits a screamer off to the right side.
One.
Now the Bruins picking up a victory today, defeating the Detroit Red Wings to even up their series at a win apiece. So good sports day so far for Boston fans. Hoping for the day-night doubleheader victory, if you will, if the Red Sox can pick up a win here tonight. Two-two. Breaking ball outside. 3-2. Another full count.
Well, this is a situation here with no outs. Grady Sizemore's not going to steal. He's going to try to wait for Pedroia to get him over, and you see the big man on deck who's waiting and hoping he hits with first and second, because probably Pedroia doesn't get on, he's not going to get much to hit with an open base.
Ground ball to third. Look the runner back and on to first to retire Pedroia for the first out of the inning.
And if Ubaldo Jimenez doesn't change the way his deception toward home plate, because he's given Grady Sizemore one look and going home. Not that he would steal with the left-hand hitter Ortiz up, because I'm sure Ortiz doesn't like anyone running in front of him, but this might be one of those situations where Grady might be able to take 90 feet on him if he doesn't pay attention.
David Ortiz referenced in the pregame ceremony. Of course, it was Ortiz who took the microphone. It was 1 year ago today. It was April the 20th, a Saturday last year, the first home game for the Red Sox after the bombings. The Friday night game had been rained out. And it was Ortiz who spoke off the cuff and from the heart. And his speech, as short as it was, has really become well known to every Bostonian.
Sometimes when you go and speak from the heart, you might say a couple words that you think aren't appropriate, but I think in that case, very appropriate.
Fouled back 0-2. Promotion day here again tomorrow. Marathon Day, and the Red Sox playing at home at 11 o'clock, as they always do on Patriots Day. And a lot of runners in the crowd, in the city, on the streets, in the hotel, everywhere. I mean, people have flooded here from all over the country. They didn't give us the orange and blue jackets. We're not you know, we're not up to their level.
Whoever scheduled me to be on Baseball Tonight tomorrow really messed up, because I was going to run in it, actually, Dan.
36,000 people will run the marathon, 9,000 more than last year. Everybody who could not finish last year because of the bombings was given a spot to run the race again this year. So there will be 36,000 people running the marathon at various points tomorrow morning, starting in different waves. They better get a good night's sleep, though. They got a big day tomorrow.
Well, how would we know what they need?
2 balls, 2 strikes on Ortiz. It's the 118th running of the Boston Marathon. First one was in 1897, which was the year after the inaugural modern Olympics in Athens. The marathon became so popular that they started one here. It's run every year since 1897, and it ends not far from here, Boylston Street, here in Boston, as the count is now full on Ortiz.
Like, who decides, you know, hey, I think it's a good idea. We should get a bunch of people and run 26 miles. Who comes up with that idea?
Ortiz joking how much admiration he has. He says he can barely get around the bases, never mind 26 miles. He hits a screamer, but it's Hardy, the shortstop, with the shift on to make the play on Ortiz, and he has that look on his face that he so often has, knowing he hit a ball right on the screws, but still doesn't have much to show for it. All he's done is advance the runner to third with 2 down.
Well, you talk about shifts and how much the Baltimore Orioles will shift, and now a lot of teams shift. And how can you be more perfect? How can you defend a guy who hits the ball perfectly? David Ortiz hits his ball as hard as you can hit it, and it's right at J.J. Hardy, who's in the perfect position. Look like a tumbling split finger, but look at this right off the barrel of the bat. You see that top spin, though. That means he just got underneath it just a little bit to put that top spin to make the ball stay down. And J.J. Hardy's probably going to go have a talk with Ubaldo, saying, you know, it's a little chilly to be getting something hit that hard at me. But it's got to be frustrating for Ortiz.
2 down, runner at third for Napoli. All of the Red Sox were sitting in the clubhouse before the game. The Orioles, rather, sitting in their clubhouse before the game, watching the end of the Indians-Blue Jays game. And against a right-handed batter, and this is becoming much more common. Edwin Encarnacion was up in the 9th inning, bases loaded, 2 outs, and he hit a ball right on the screws up the middle. And Terry Francona had the shift on, had his second baseman playing right behind the bag, and ball game over. And you can see Ortiz still shaking his head, and this is done to him more than any other hitter in baseball.
And that's the result you want. You want him to be frustrated. You want him to try to get off of his game, like we've heard others say. Oh, if he's thinking about it, then we've done our job.
2-2 the count on Napoli. 3-0 Orioles, bottom first.
He had a couple yesterday that were undefensible. Homer to right, ball off the wall and left.
And then he paints the outside corner to end the inning. Orioles 3, Red Sox nothing at the end of 1 here in Boston. Back here in Boston, Dan Schulman, John Kruk, Buster Olney with you. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. With Patriots Day and the Marathon being run tomorrow, the Orioles leading the Red Sox 3-0 top second. Jonathan Scope will lead it off for Baltimore, rookie infielder, playing second base tonight. A guy who had 4 hits on Friday, and a guy who's really impressed Buck Showalter in a number of different respects. He's played a lot of third base. Manny Machado is still out, but he's at his natural spot of second base tonight. And that's a big second baseman.
230-pound second baseman, and Buck Showalter has just raved about his arm. The fact that he could play shortstop too. And when Machado comes back, he said we're going to have 3 shortstops in our infield with Machado, Hardy, and Scope. So a lot of athleticism and a lot of range being covered, I would imagine, in that infield.
There's a good slider away as Peavy strikes him out.
Well, Jake Peavy, we mentioned about him. He needs to hit his spots and have good command of his pitches. There, the Nelson Cruz, he wanted it away, ran back in. He wanted that ball down and away, and it was up, giving Adam Jones a chance to hit it. And that pitch to Matt Wieters after 2 fastballs in for strikes. He lets one float out over the plate, gives up a single.
Ryan Flaherty, the batter now. He's at third base tonight for the Orioles. Hitting just 179 so far on the season. The number 9 hitter in Buck Showalter's lineup. Even with a bag at third is Holt. Backed up the rest of the way around the infield as Flaherty fouls it back and the count goes to 0-2.
Well, this isn't the problem for Jake Peavy. Getting ahead of the count's not the problem. It's he hasn't been able to put anyone away yet besides Jonathan Scope.
And a fly ball to center field takes Sizemore back just shy of the track, 2 down. ESPN's coverage of Major League Baseball continues tomorrow night. It'll be a National League Central Division matchup as the Reds and Pirates meet on Monday Night Baseball presented by USAA. The Yankees here at Fenway for Wednesday Night Baseball presented by T-Mobile. And we will be in the Bronx Sunday night as the Angels take on the Yankees. And we are expecting to see Masahiro Tanaka on the mound for the Yankees on Sunday night. He is scheduled to start here in Boston Tuesday night. So barring there's no off day this week. There's no off day Thursday for the Yankees, so barring any weather or anything like that, we'll see Tanaka 1 week from tonight.
Can't wait. All I've heard, if you haven't seen him in person, you got to see this.
Hey, the hitters aren't so excited, though.
Well, we don't hit anymore, Dan. So.
Nasty splitter, right?
Well, 2 of them is what Brian McCann told me. He has one he can throw that goes straight down, and one he can throw that he can cut across or have it sink or actually run left to right if you want to. But he throws them both for strikes, which can't be fun for any hitter.
And a strike, 3-1 to Markakis. Now to play 3-2, I want to clear up something that I mistakenly said, and I apologize for it. A year ago, the Friday night game, the first game, the day before Ortiz wasn't rained out, that was lockdown day here in Boston, a day that all of us watched on television around the country, around the continent, or many people around the world watching that. It was on Saturday when the Red Sox played again for the first time at home, and that was the day 1 year ago today that David Ortiz made the speech. The Friday night game was the lockdown day here in Boston. I apologize for making that error as Markakis draws a 2-out walk here off Peavy. And John Farrell, we asked him, Buster asked him before the game, what's he going to do tomorrow, and he said, you know, he hasn't got a specific plan in mind, and I'm sure he won't be alone. I think a lot of the guys wearing the Red Sox jerseys today after the game tomorrow might wander down towards the finish line, as there's a base hit into left field for Cruz, who homered his first time up. Markakis up to second. Buster, you got more?
Yeah, and talking with some of the players, it's clear that a number of them plan to go over to the race course. They just, of course, don't know what time their game is going to be over. Mike Napoli told me that he actually went over there when he was playing with the Texas Rangers one day. It just worked out that he was able to. He said, now, though, it feels like I need to do that because I'm part of this city.
And I think that's one of the themes that developed in the wake of the bombings is how much the Red Sox and the Bruins and the Celtics, and if you saw some of the pieces on SportsCenter or E60 in the last few days, you saw that the connection that only strengthened between the competitors, the first responders, the families, the sports franchises here. Doc Rivers, I think, said it best, coach of the Celtics at the time, and he said we needed a gathering. We needed a church, and the ballpark, the arena, became that church in many ways for a lot of people, a chance for thousands and thousands of people to come together in the wake of that terrible tragedy.
Yeah, Johnny Gomes told me before the game it was a 3-hour relief to some people, to just block it out of their mind and have their focus on something else other than that tragedy.
Two on, two out. Orioles up 3-0. Top of the second here at Fenway. And Chris Davis, who walked and scored in the first, is the batter. Looks like Pierzynski and Peavy are butting heads a little bit here on what pitch to throw. They're two headstrong guys.
Well, they've been pitching him in, Chris Davis. They've been trying to come in and in and in, and you see AJ right there. I don't know what those signs are, but one of them's pitch in, and I'm sure that's going to be the one he throws.
Bouncer down to first. Napoli feeds Peavy in time to end the inning. No runs, a base hit, 2 men left, and to the bottom of the second. Here at Fenway, Johnny Gomes to lead it off with the Red Sox down 3-0. Back at Fenway, Wally, the Green Monsters, up on the Green Monster here with the Red Sox trailing 3-0.
Where else would he be?
Messing with an Orioles fan, probably scarfing down his food, as Johnny Gomes takes a strike to get the inning underway from Ubaldo Jimenez. Gomes hitting $194 with a home run in the early going. Jimenez walked a batter, but that's it, and here's a shift. More and more often, as we said, I mean, it's been commonplace with left-handed batters for a long time, but you're seeing more and more now with right-handed batters.
And again, this shift only works because you have a very mobile first baseman in Chris Davis, who can also throw. You see how far he's playing over. Now look, if Johnny Gomes hits a routine grounder at second base, it's a base hit, but this is why you do it.
Ground ball to short, one down to Buster.
More and more you hear players talk about how do you adjust to the shift. For example, some of the Red Sox players are telling me that they thought that Alfonso Soriano of the Yankees actually in that series last week seemed to make a real effort to take the ball to right field against the shift, We saw last week how the Yankees had shifted on Jackie Bradley Jr. and David Ortiz encouraged him, hey, take the hit, bunt. We saw Jed Lowry bunt against the Oakland Athletics. Seems like we're in problem-solving mode when it comes to the shift.
All right, Buster, thank you. Here's Daniel Nava showing bunt, and he takes inside ball one. And you wonder how much of an adjustment there will be if it does have a tangible statistical impact on offense in the sport. Right now, the overall batting average in the majors is 248. It's 249 in the National League, 247 in the American League. We can't sit here and say, well, this much is because of the shift, but boy, managers are buying in. Organizations are buying in one by one more and more.
Well, they're tracking every ball that's hit by every hitter, and that's how you come to these conclusions. And there's a ball up the middle that J.J. Hardy's standing there waiting for. So something's working.
A couple of years ago, kind of Tampa Bay and Baltimore, they were out in front of the pack a little bit, doing it more than anybody else. Look at the Houston Astros. I mean, they've done it more than the next two teams, the Yankees and the Brewers, combined. On pace to do it 1,800 times. That's more than 10 times a game.
That's a lot of paper.
It's a lot of running around for the infielders.
Especially if they have the third baseman, the one who's shifting on the lefties and having to run into shallow right field. The guy's going to get wore out.
Here's Xander Bogaerts, 2 down. And a strike from Jimenez. As a player, if your manager or whomever is in charge of this stuff came to you and said, hey, we've got numbers that back this up, do you just say, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to do?
Yeah, as a position player, I would say, yes, that's great. Let's do it if it's going to help us. But, you have to make sure that your pitcher buys into it. Because if he doesn't, then it's worthless.
It might be a little trickier with a guy like Jimenez who doesn't have pinpoint control. I mean, you tell a guy like, an Adam Wainwright, here's what we're doing. He's going to put the ball where the ball needs to be more often than most. But you can shift one way, but if the pitcher is missing a spot by a foot, you won't get the same result.
No, and that's where the shift becomes a detriment to your team if you have a guy who can't command the ball at all in the strike zone. Or so that could be an issue, and that might be why they are not going to overshift with Ubaldo Jimenez pitching. Of course, they will with Ortiz.
And a good inning for Jimenez. A couple of ground outs and a strikeout. We're through 2 at Fenway with the Baltimore still in front 3-0.
And the Red Sox nothing. Top of the third coming up in just a moment. And of course, less than roughly 13 hours from now, 14 hours, we will begin tomorrow's Boston Marathon, which will start in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, and go through Ashland, which is where it originally started before it was pushed back on the orders of the King and Queen of England. And it goes through the college towns, of course, Wellesley College and Boston College, and ends up here at Copley Square. Tom Rinaldi joins us now from the marathon finish line. And Tom, logistically, what are some of the things that they're looking for tomorrow? And, Tom, obviously there are only enough precautions you can take, and then things sort of are out of your control. The ideal day for everybody involved is a clean race, right? I agree with that. And having sat and watched many of them, rooted on those men and women, Tom, certainly the race should be the focus and not tragedies like we had last year. Let's go back inside for the game, and Dan and John.
All right, Carl, thank you. Top third, Orioles 3, Red Sox nothing. It'll be Adam Jones, Matt Wieters, and J.J. Hardy against Jake Peavy. Jones singled and scored his first time up. First pitch swinging again. He comes up empty. It's 0-1. Dan Schulman, John Kruk, Buster Olney, and joined by Mike Barnacle of MSNBC, a former longtime Boston Globe columnist and someone born and raised here in Boston, for a little perspective on last year, and even more than the events of last year, how the city has emerged from that and what's gone on in the last year. As there's a liner, a base hit for Jones, who's now 2 for 2. Mike, thanks for joining us, and maybe just for people around the country, tell us what Patriots Day and the Marathon has meant prior to last year. How special, how important is this day here in Boston?
Well, it's a huge day. It's a school vacation day. It's a holiday, Patriots Day. That's the Marathon Day. Red Sox game in the morning. It's basically, the Marathon is a 26-mile-long block party with hundreds of thousands of people, ordinary people, cheering the runners on. And it's going to be bigger and better than ever tomorrow.
And this is the kind of thing that grandparents take, parents take kids. I mean, it's a multi-generational event.
Exactly right. I mean, everyone takes their children to see the runners, and the runners are the ordinary people running. The elite runners, of course, will...
There's a fly ball to left field. It'll be caught by Gomes to retire Wieters one down.
The elite runners will cross the finish line about the 5th or 6th inning tomorrow. The crowd spills out of Fenway Park to watch the marathon. And the people then running the marathon are people like you, people like me, people like Crockett. I'm sorry, not Crockett. But they're ordinary people running for extraordinary causes.
Raising money for a variety of causes.
A whole host of causes.
When you think of the last year, the events of April 15th of last year and what's happened since then, J.J. Hardy is the batter. What image sticks with you over the last year?
I think it's a combination of resilience, pride, hope, optimism in the future. And I think many, many people who witnessed personally what occurred last year and have spent the year, those who were maimed and wounded, as well as people who knew the dead, I think they reflect on the fact that we've all found out, it's far more beneficial to help someone than to hate someone. And I think that's been the root cause that has kept a lot of hope and optimism alive.
You know, a lot of times, too, sports is fun and games. It's something we all love, but it seemed to take on a bigger meaning in the aftermath last year because of what the Celtics, the Bruins, and the Red Sox, how involved they became. Yeah.
Well, this club, the Red Sox, particularly because it was their season. The next night they left town. There was a 617 uniform, 617 area code hanging in the dugout as they played a game in Cleveland the following night. And the team last year had a unique personality, and part of it was the personality of the city, and what happened in the city afterwards. I mean, the Red Sox had a rough year, the year prior to 2013, and not to overwork the baseball metaphor, but victims of the marathon, people hurt by the marathon, get back in the batter's box. And the Red Sox kept getting in that batter's box. No one picked the Red Sox to roll the dice and win it all.
And ultimately, Johnny Gomes took the World Series championship trophy and laid it down at the finish line on Boylston Street. And you know, the symbolism and the intent and the power of that gesture is obvious.
Yeah, so. And less than a half a mile from here, and they were a unique group of guys, not superstars. I mean, John, you could probably attest to that. I mean, just good guys. And the people felt that they were good guys, and they expressed, great feeling for what happened continually through the year.
Yeah, I spoke at length today with Johnny Gomes about last year and, what it meant. And he actually took batting practice today off of a couple of guys injured in the marathon last year. And he said I have had my own issues with, he said he's flatlined 5 times basically, and he said, but this was the most emotional thing I've ever been through, having these guys throw batting practice to he and Mike Napoli this afternoon.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to be you're always proud of this city without question, but last year after everything that went on, that pride had to go up 100%, didn't it?
Yeah, but it did, obviously. But it also, I think, symbolized, I think this would have occurred in any American city. I don't think it was unique to Boston. It just became more public in Boston because of the Red Sox success and because of the poignancy of some of the victims. 8-year-old Martin Richard. We bring our 8-year-olds to the marathon. A little boy dies at the marathon. And his family is a source of tremendous civic pride because of the dignity with which they handle that loss.
Well, we're looking forward to record participants and record crowds tomorrow at the Boston Marathon. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
A.J. Pierzynski leading off the bottom of the third. First pitch swinging, drives a ball to left field, and a leaping catch made by David Lowe. He kind of altered his angle towards that ball midway through, Crucky, and recovered just in time.
Well, that's what athleticism will do for you. This is one of those balls that you know it's going to slice back on you. See him had to kind of reach back behind him a little bit. That means his angle, the ball sliced on him a little more than what he anticipated, but athleticism will make up for a lot of mistakes.
So 1 pitch, 1 out for Jimenez here in the third. We talked about how Lowe is a guy that the Orioles were interested in getting from Kansas City because of his defense. This is a team that set a major league record last year for committing the fewest errors in a season. They committed only 54 errors all of last year. They've committed only 4 this year, and all of them have come from third base. And they're, of course, without their third baseman, Manny Machado, who they hope to have back maybe in about 10 days. And Machado not only was a Gold Glove defender last year, he was the American League Platinum Glove defender, which means he was the best. He was voted as the best overall defensive player at any position. And Buck Showalter told us before the game he thinks Manny Machado had as good a defensive season last year as any player he's ever seen since he's been in baseball.
Well, it was pretty special. And, you know, when you're taking a big shortstop like that, moving him to third base like they've done with Manny Machado, and he just took to that position. The way he comes in on bunts, the way he's perfect with how he barehands the ball, stepping off the correct foot, making strong, accurate throws. Yeah, I mean, it's special to watch. And believe me, they're not going to have those 4 errors at third base if he's there.
And a strike on the corner, 3-2 to Brock Holt. Brock Holt 3 for 7 since getting recalled. The Red Sox had picked up Ryan Roberts, so they sent Holt back down after he'd been up in the majors for 1 day, and he went down and he raked. And he was hitting 380 at AAA. None too happy with the demotion, John Farrell told us, but he handled it the right way, channeled the energy into doing well at AAA, got called back up, and he's had a couple of really nice days.
Dan, if you send someone down and they're happy to go down, you got issues. You might not want to bring him back up. And you know, Brock Holt's that guy. He has confidence in himself, like John Farrell said. He thinks he's better than everyone, which you should. And everything you like about a player, Brock Holt brings to the table.
Back to the top of the order for Sizemore. It's a different Ubaldo Jimenez than it used to be. It used to be a guy who could overpower you a lot with four-seam fastballs, but as he's gotten older and lost some velocity, he's had to compensate a little bit, change the repertoire here and there, as many pitchers do. Used to be a guy who could throw 97, 98 with a four-seamer. Now he's more like 91, 92 with a two-seamer.
Yeah, he's trying to make it move laterally, and that's the only way now at 92 you can live in this game, and that's what he has to do. He has to make the ball sink. He has to make the ball try to cut in on left-handed hitters, because if you're just throwing two-seamers all day, you're going to get, these guys are going to make you pay badly. And so he's cutting it now. He's sinking it, cutting it, throwing a curveball, which that last pitch to Grady Sizemore was.
And you can see year by year how the velocity has dropped. You mentioned Jake Peavy has gone through this. Much discussed CC Sabathia has gone through. I mean, everybody goes through this as a power pitcher at some point.
Yeah, you have to. Nolan Ryan's really the only one I've ever played against that never had to reinvent himself. He threw 95, 97. Till the day he walked away from baseball, and that Dwight Gooden lost some velocity as his career went on, and other great power pitchers lost their velocity.
2-2 the count on Sizemore. Lots of layers of clothing out here at Fenway tonight. Low 40s, and now the Orioles go into a shift here.
And you saw Flaherty going and tell Ubaldo, look, if he steals, you got to cover third, because he's going to be running up there. Brock Holt goes. Here he goes.
And it's fouled back. So this is interesting. So Flaherty, the third baseman, has gone over to the second base side of the bag. Hardy is staying put at short.
Well, the difficult thing you're going to have with this shift alignment right here, if Brock Holt steals and Grady Sizemore hits a ground ball to the second baseman, can Flaherty beat Brock Holt to third base? And if you're Brock Holt, you just keep running. I'm sure Brian Butterfield is telling him, hey, if there's a grounder to second, keep going if you're stealing.
Yeah, you're right. So Flaherty has stayed put. Hardy's gone over to the other side of the bag. And that's probably what Arnie Baylor, the first base coach of the Red Sox, is talking to Brock Holt about. If you got a chance to win a foot race to third. A swing and a miss to get Sizemore for the second out.
Well, there you see the two-seam fastball, and you see how it starts center of the plate, and Grady Sizemore think, I got this thing set up good, to hit this ball the other way, and it just runs away from him, and you see Grady trying to chase it right now with this top hand, trying to reach out for it, and just couldn't get it because the ball had too much break on it and tricked him.
Now Pedroia takes low ball one. Pedroia grounded out his first time up.
I think if I'm Brock Holt, I'm taking a shot here. You got to try to get in scoring position. Let Pedroia either drive you in or or David Ortiz if Pedroia can hit behind you and let David Ortiz hit with first and third. We have microphones in those bases, but Dan, that's the way that feels coming back into sliding into any base.
Like scraping sandpaper.
They put this, like, they're not pebbles, but they're gritty stuff on so that when the wind blows, it doesn't blow up. I'll blow all the dirt up in people's faces, and so it doesn't feel good, Dan. Granular.
Diving back into first. Yeah. Fortunately, at some point of your career, that became less of a part of your game as the career wore on.
Took shorter leads and didn't run.
Took that out of the playbook, huh?
Yeah, I made the manager's job a lot easier. Should I send him here? Nope.
Station to station.
Not quite. I could go first to third. I would go first to third, but stealing bases was out of the repertoire after.
You had some early.
Yeah, that's when I was dumb.
There he goes. Throw down on a bounce, skips into center field, stolen a base for Holt. So the second steal tonight for the Red Sox. Sizemore with the one in the first, and Holt with one here in the third.
That was another one that Wieters tried to throw from his knees because Ubaldo's not quick to home, and Matt Wieters trying to do everything he can to compensate for how slow Jimenez is going home. So he's trying to throw from his knees. He skipped that one past scope. Luckily, Brock Holt didn't go to third base on that one.
Bouncing ball to Hardy. And the inning is over. 3 complete at Fenway, with the Orioles leading the Red Sox 3-0 here at Fenway Park in Boston. On ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. We're here in Boston along with John Kruk and Buster Olney. I'm Dan Schulman. And the first pitch at the top of the fourth is hit a mile down the left field line, but a foul off the bat of Jonathan Schoop, the Baltimore rookie, who we talked a little bit about in his last at bat. He is from Curacao and is one of 4 players from Curacao, one of 5 from either Curacao or Aruba, which are known as either the Netherlands Antilles or Dutch Caribbean. Curacao is an island of 150,000 people, 171 square miles. That's it. And look at the kind of baseball talent that is coming off that island. And the Orioles have a number of other players in their minor league system from Curacao right now. But when you talk about whether it's Curacao or Aruba, guys like Andrelton Simmons and Jurickson Profar, I mean, you're talking about some of the best young players in the game right now.
And middle infielders.
Yeah.
You know, went from apparently it gone from San Pedro de Macorís to Curacao.
And Schoop is gone, 1 down to Buster.
And it's amazing, guys, how many of these guys played amateur ball together. I asked Xander Bogaerts today, how old were you when you met Jonathan Schoop? He said he was 9 years old. When Andrelton Simmons played baseball when he was 9 or 10, he was the #1 pitcher on his team. And the #2 pitcher was one of those guys on that list. In other words, these guys, Didi Gregorius, they've known each other their whole lives.
So if you're a shortstop on a top-notch team in Curacao or Aruba, you're pretty good. If you move one of these other guys over to second base or third base, you got game.
Yeah, it's like those the guys from Virginia, David Wright, Zimmerman.
That's right. The Uptons were together.
Uptons,
right? Yeah.
I think Mark Reynolds was one of that group, and you know they all played middle infield. So I asked Ryan Zimmerman, I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "Well, one day David would play short, I'd play third, and we just kind of mixed it around." But
this is a fair ball, and the out recorded. Flaherty retired, 2 down. In a build-up to the World Cup in Brazil, ESPN features stories and people who have changed the international soccer landscape. On Tuesday, we'll take a look at Maradona's fascinating performance in the '86 World Cup in Mexico, as well as the controversial 1974 World Cup qualifier in Chile. 30 for 30 soccer stories, Tuesday at 7 on ESPN, also live on Watch ESPN.
Tell you what, if you didn't know any better, you'd think that was a relative of Mike Napoli.
I was going to say the same thing. Here's Markakis. And you know what? It very well could be.
You never know.
Although beards became all the rage here in Boston last year. 3 runs, 5 hits for the Orioles. No runs, no hits for the Red Sox. Jimenez has walked 2, but that's it. Peavy got touched up for all 3 runs back in the first inning, including a home run by Nelson Cruz. Markakis has popped up and walked. A lot of late movement on that pitch, but Peavy doesn't get the call, and it's 3-1, and you can see he's muttering, and I suspect because he's turned his back to the plate, he's muttering at Ted Barrett, not at himself on that one.
Yeah, he wasn't yelling at himself on that one, I don't think.
And there's ball 4. Let's take a look at that pitch that seems to have upset Peavy and see what K-Zone says. No, it was high. Brzezinski actually brought it down into the strike zone, and that one was clearly low, the last pitch. So Ted Barrett was right, much to the dismay of Jake Peavy.
That poor baseball, the way he was rubbing it up, Dan. Yeah. he was trying to hurt that thing.
He hasn't mellowed a whole lot over the years, has he?
It never leaves you.
Yeah.
That's something that will never leave. That competitive fire. I mean, I'm sure when he retires from baseball, if he's playing golf, there's going to be anger when he hits a bad shot. Or fishing or hunting or whatever he does. They're just those competitive juices don't ever leave. Competing for the bunny ear.
Big swing and a foul back. 1-2 on Nelson Cruz, who homered in the first inning and singled in the second inning. And it looks like he's going to be a nice addition to the Baltimore lineup, whether it's in the outfield or DHing, whether he hits second or maybe down 5-6 somewhere there. When Machado comes back, we'll see how it all aligns itself in the Baltimore lineup. Inning over. 5th strikeout for Peavy. Big Poppy leading off for the Red Sox when we come back. Bottom 4, Fenway Park. Orioles 3, Red Sox nothing. Time now to get some FaceTime, brought to you by Edward Jones. Buster Olney with Orioles manager Buck Showalter.
Bucky, Baldo Jimenez struggled in his first starts this year. Walks the first hitter tonight. What's been the adjustment?
You know, it's not like he's real wild the whole time. You know, he's been around the plate, just little things. You know, it's an unconventional delivery, but it's part of his deception. You got to be careful about robbing from Peter to pay Paul. But you know, good young man who is very competitive, and we like him.
Nelson Cruz got you guys started tonight with a home run. How's he been since he joined the team?
Oh, he's been great. You know, who would like to have their whole life judged by their worst decision? And I think we all need to think about that. And he's been a good teammate, as he's always been, and his heart's in the right place. But, you know, he's off to a good start. He's been very supportive of his teammates and them of him, and we'll see where it takes us.
Buck, thanks.
David Ortiz leading off the inning for the Red Sox. And he drives the ball to center field, but over into left center to make the catch is Jones, one down. So Ubaldo Jimenez hasn't given up a hit through 3 1/3. What are you seeing tonight?
Well, deception and having to make the ball move. But when you watch Ubaldo Jimenez pitch, I would think as a hitter you'd be able to pick up the ball easily. He brings it way back below his back, then he brings it again. I mean, you can see the ball pretty much throughout his whole delivery if you're following the ball. And then he opens up his left shoulder, his left foot starts coming toward the right hand or left hand hitter's batter's box, and he shows you the ball the whole way. That is why if he's not throwing 98, he has to make the ball move and he has to make the ball cut and sink if he's going to be effective in the major leagues, because if not, if it's a straight fastball at 92, it's going to be a long day for Ubaldo Jimenez.
And here's a pretty good look at what the hitter will see.
Yeah, I mean, look how long you can see the ball from him. I mean, he opens his whole body up to you to let you see it. I would think as a hitter, and I've never faced Ubaldo Jimenez because he's way too young, I would imagine that it would be easy to see the ball out of his hands. Now, what you do with it after that is another story.
Towering fly ball to left field. And just shy of the track. Lowe is there to retire Napoli. Yet at times, the first half of 2010, granted when he threw a lot harder, and kind of the last half of last year, This guy was almost unhittable at times.
Yeah, well, in 2010, like you were talking about, he was throwing 98 to 100 miles an hour for 7 or 8 innings every start. And last year, the second half of the season is when he finally, it takes a while to reinvent yourself. And he, once he figured out the two-seamer, once he tried to figured out the cutter, then everything became, okay, this is how I pitch now.
Johnny Gomes, first pitch swinging, and there's the first hit of the night for the Red Sox. Gomes digging for second and in there.
Just a hanging slider. You see the spin on that ball, the little dot. That was a slider. It was supposed to break down and away where Matt Wieters wanted it, and it just stayed up in the strike zone. And yeah, that's another pitch right there. Ubaldo's lucky. Johnny Gomes, who hasn't had a lot of at bats or hasn't played that much in the last few days, he gets dialed in on that one. That could be in the seats.
Crowd energized after that double by Gomes. The batter now is Nava. Red Sox 0 for 4 tonight with runners in scoring position, and came into the game hitting just .207 as a team this year with runners in scoring position, putting up some very unusual offensive numbers for the Red Sox, especially because for the most part it's the same cast of characters who led the world in offense last year. Obviously they've lost Ellsbury, and that's a very significant loss for them, but so many other guys aren't approaching the numbers they put up a year ago.
Well, you see the adjustment they've made this inning. They're attacking the first pitch off Ubaldo Jimenez. They're not letting him get ahead in the count. They're trying to go after him early and try to do some damage.
And you can see what a difference a year makes, and there are a lot of differences so far in the early going for the Red Sox compared to their magical season a year ago. No 2.
And you remember who hit the big home run in the first game back after what happened at the marathon? Daniel Nava.
Yep. 1 year ago today, gave the Red Sox a 4-2 lead over the Kansas City Royals. Hit it in the bottom of the 8th inning, and they would win the game 4-3. And Boston Strong is visible all over this city here again this weekend. Inside, 2-2. Nava last year hit .303, had an on-base percentage of .385, and this year he came into tonight's game hitting just .136. He's down to .133 right now, struggling from both sides of the plate. Remember, Shane Victorino's getting close. He'll be back within a few days, barring a setback. That'll create a logjam. Nava strikes out to end the inning as Gomes is stranded at second. 4 in the books. 3-0 Orioles with the slugger Chris Davis leading it off for the O's. Red Sox nothing as we go to the top of the fifth at Fenway. Time to get some more FaceTime brought to you by Edward Jones. Buster Olney with the Red Sox manager John Farrell.
John, what are you seeing Jake Peavy so far tonight?
You know, Buster, after the first inning, he's been down the strike zone a little bit better. He got beat with some fastballs that were mislocated early on. You know, Cruz hits the first pitch he sees out of the ballpark, and then a couple of 0-2 fastballs that didn't get to the spot that he paid for.
Your best swings came in that last half inning. What was the adjustment?
Well, I just think one time through the order, we're starting to see some pitches. We've had some guys that have had success against them, so still that 2-out base hit with a man in scoring position been a little elusive for us.
John, thanks.
It has been extremely elusive for the Red Sox so far this season. They are 0 for 5 with the runners in scoring position tonight. They're down 3-0. Jake Peavy facing Chris Davis to begin the Baltimore fifth with the shift on for the Red Sox. And it is Holt, the third baseman, who's gone way over to the other side of the bag and even playing to pull for where a second baseman would be. Pedroia, the second baseman, is way out on the outfield grass. Napoli guarding the line. And Bogarts, the lone infielder on the left side. Off the body of Holt, but time to recover and get his man. So yes, Crucky, 5-3.
I got it.
I know it's weird.
And I'm still keeping score, which is the more weird part. That's that's just a hard hit ball, no matter shift or not. That's where the second baseman would be playing. It just so happened to be the third baseman there, but the thing you like is how hard Chris Davis ran to first base. It's not always the case, is it, Dan? Saw that yesterday in Washington.
Yeah, Matt Williams did not like what he saw from Bryce Harper on a comebacker to the mound as Adam Jones takes ball one, and he took Harper out of the game in the sixth inning for a lack of hustle.
And in the press conference, didn't make any excuses. Bad leg, just giving him a blow, all that stuff. Nope.
Pedroia on to Napoli, 2 down. Definitely one of the big talking points for baseball fans over the weekend, in part because it's Bryce Harper, and he gets a lot of attention for a lot of things that he does, but you can see not exactly booting it down the line, and never even got close to first base, and Kevin Franzen took over for him, and that was it for Bryce Harper for the afternoon. One of the more eventful things over the weekend in baseball, Masahiro Tanaka officially announced to start here in Boston Tuesday, his first start at Fenway Park. That means we'll see him, weather permitting, 1 week from tonight in the Bronx when the Yankees host the Angels on Sunday Night Baseball. And good news for Dodger fans, Clayton Kershaw threw a simulated game today, threw all of his pitches, and from what we understand, came out of it feeling pretty good.
That is great news for Dodger fans. Anytime you get that #1 guy back, and I'm sure they're not going to rush him. They want him when he comes back. They want him to stay back and not have this thing be a lingering problem throughout the season.
Wieters lines it over Holtz into left field, a base hit. His second hit of the night. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell is brought to you by Chevrolet. Celebrate the new season with Chevrolet. Share your excitement using #TheNew. And Michelin, a better way forward. A 2-out single for Wieters. Bryce Harper, by the way, was back in the lineup for the Nationals today and went 1 for 4.
I bet he ran hard too.
Washington defeating St. Louis 3-2 today.
You know, when you hear Matt Williams' explanation, he benched him for not hustling, and he said, I made a deal with everyone, run hard for 90 feet, just run hard for 90 feet, and he said he didn't live up to that. So
matters J.J. Hardy. Remember Bobby Cox pulling Andrew Jones all those years ago? That wasn't base running. That was an outfield situation, if memory serves.
Ball went past him in Pittsburgh, and he kind of jogged after it, and whoever hit it ran around the bases. Hanley Ramirez got benched by Freddie Gonzalez in Miami for a defensive move.
And you can go kind of 2 ways on that if you're the player. You can own it and learn from it, or if you don't.
Well, there's some that don't.
That don't. That's true. Yep. And some managers overlook it more than others. Some managers will tolerate it, and some managers don't.
And I've heard from managers that said, well, if I bench him, I'll lose him.
Right.
Okay, but if you don't bench him, then you're giving the green light to everyone else to play that way.
Right.
It's 90 feet. I mean, it ain't that far, really.
Base hit into center for Hardy. The inning will continue. Leaders up to second. Seven hits now for the Orioles off Jake Peavy as they lead 3-0 here in the fifth inning. An American League East Division, Crucky, that so far is kind of tough to figure out. I mean, the Yankees are the leaders right now. They just lost Nova. Sounds like it might be serious, but generally their pitching's been very good. Tampa Bay, they've got some serious pitching injuries right now. Big things expected of them. Toronto right now 10-9 after they lost to the Indians. Baltimore's right at 500. Everybody's kind of stuck together right now.
It's like we thought. We thought that any one of the teams could win it, and any one of the teams could finish in last place.
Here's David Lowe ripping one down the right field line. That's a fair ball. And it'll skip up into the seats, so Wieters will score. Hardy is going to be sent back to third on a ground rule double by Lowe that makes it 4-0 Baltimore.
That's the old two-seamer. He's trying to, again, bring it in on the hands and let it run on the hip and run it back over the inside part of the plate. And just caught too much of it. David Lowe hits it down the line. I get a little fan interference right here, and ground rule double or whatever you want to call it. Orioles got another run on the board.
And so here's how it's going for the Red Sox. They get a runner at second, 2 down, can't get the hit. The Orioles have 2 outs, nobody on. Single, single, double. They've got to run.
Yeah, and this game is still manageable for the Red Sox, but if Scope right here gets another big 2-out hit, then 6-0 could be in jeopardy if you're the Sox.
Roller over the mound. Bogarts in time to get Scope by his step and end the inning. But the Orioles tack on a run and lead 4-0 here at Fenway. Well, the moving ceremony before the game, the phrase Boston Strong out in full force. Again here tonight, you saw some of the first responders, some of the people who were injured in the bombings last year, their family members, some paramedics, law enforcement officials. They were all brought out in groups to tremendous rousing ovations here at Fenway Park. Tomorrow is Patriots Day. Tomorrow is the 118th running of the Boston Marathon, with record numbers expected both in terms of the participants and the crowds on hand, with everyone saying here in Boston, hey, this day, it's so important to people here, and they're going to show their strength and their resilience and their unity and their togetherness and everything else that has only strengthened and intensified in the last year here in this great city. Xander Bogaerts leads off the fifth. Center field, Adam Jones has to play it on a hop. Leadoff single for Bogaerts. Just the second hit of the night for the Red Sox off Jimenez. And now Pierzynski. AJ had a real hot streak earlier in the season, then had an 0 for 15. Had a base hit on Friday. I don't know if you saw it, Crucky. It wasn't hit that hard, dropped in right center, and he had his, kind of mocking himself, had his hands up in the air as he rounded first because he'd been struggling. But this is a guy 37 years of age, still catches 120, 130 games a year, and he can still swing the bat.
And this might be a good situation right here to put Bogaerts in motion, because AJ, like you said, he will swing at pretty much anything. Doesn't walk a whole lot, but this might be a time when you can open up a hole, maybe get a first and third situation.
Instead of pop-up. And Hardy drifting back makes the catch. Major League Baseball, People Magazine, and Target are looking for outstanding teachers in your community. 30 teachers will be recognized at the 2014 All-Star Game, July 15th. Log on to allstarteachers.com to nominate your favorite teacher today. MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, celebrating 12 years. Join the millions of subscribers. Watch every out-of-market game live in true HD on over 400 devices. Visit MLB.TV for details. Here's Brock Holt. So Holt at third base tonight. We touched on it very briefly earlier that Red Sox have a couple of injured players who are getting close, and one of them is the incumbent at third, Will Middlebrooks, who's been dealing with a calf injury, possibly heading out to play in some minor league rehab games. John Farrell told us tomorrow and Tuesday. The same goes for Shane Victorino, who played at Pawtucket yesterday, off today, supposed to play again tomorrow and Tuesday. And if all goes well, there's Victorino. Victorino could be back midweek. Sounds like Middlebrooks is maybe 2-3 days behind Victorino, at least in terms of the schedule that John Farrell gave us.
You think of the outfield the Red Sox will have when Shane Victorino comes back, conceivably. Grady Sizemore in left, Jackie Bradley Jr. in center, Shane Victorino in right. You basically have three center fielders playing the three outfield positions.
Holt walked, stole a base, his first time up. In yesterday's game, tripled in a run and then scored on a squeeze, and the triple that he hit was the first triple the Red Sox have had this season. 18 games in.
And in this ballpark.
Now, right center's a pretty good spot to pick one up here. Now, he will stay alive on the foul ball. How much do you think they miss Ellsbury?
Oh, a ton. You know, he was a stabilizer at the top of the order, even though he was injured last year. You know, but he was always there. He's that stabilizer at the top of the order, got on base, and of course you know what he can do with his legs. And they were a different team when he was here because he ran. When he got on base, he ran.
ball goes foul. Ultimately, as you look at the roster as it's comprised now, who do you think ultimately will be the leadoff hitter? Is it they've used Sizemore? Will it eventually be Bradley? They've used Nava. They've used Gomes. They've used Pedroia. Who should be the leadoff hitter?
I think you got to give Grady Sizemore a chance. I think because that's where he hit in Cleveland the majority of his career. When he was at his best, he was the leadoff hitter for the Cleveland Indians. I think you got to give him a chance because of his history, and give him another month or so, and if it doesn't work out and he's hitting in the 240s, 230s, then you have to go to plan B. And having a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D in the first couple weeks of the season is kind of a tough way to go about it.
One on, one out, 2-2. The count on hold. 4-0 Orioles, 5th inning. And it's strike 3 called, number 5 on the night for Jimenez.
Like a nice backdoor slider right there to Brock Holt. You see Weeder sitting outside, and you see the breaking ball. It's well, very, very lenient strike zone right there. Maybe you hit the glove, you hit the glove. He used to hate that. Braves were great at that. Set a foot outside and hit the glove. Well, hit the glove, but the glove ain't in the strike zone.
Have a seat, son.
Yeah. You're talking about 2 Hall of Famers too, Maddox and Glavinu, but that didn't help them get in the Hall of Fame. Believe me, they were outstanding pitchers and competitors.
Grady Sizemore, the batter. We talked about some of the changes for the Red Sox and how it's been a difficult start. It's been a long time since a World Series champion repeated. You got to go back to the Yankees of 98, 99, and 2000. And only 2 of the last 13 even made it to the World Series. 6 of the last 13 world champions missed the playoffs entirely. Now, not to say the Red Sox will. They're still certainly a talented team, but every season starts anew with new challenges, and the Red Sox have been determined to turn the page. That's been one of the big mottos that they've had so far this year.
And that's what happens, Dan, when you lose a great player like Jacoby Ellsbury. You hope Jackie Bradley Jr. If Jackie Bradley Jr. is hitting 300 and getting on base, okay, we don't miss Ellsbury that much, but he's not. And Grady Sizemore's not hitting 300 and getting on base a ton. And that's why this whole, if they brought Jacoby Ellsbury back, where would they be? Would they be in a different spot? Playing better, and I firmly believe yes, because I think at this point, Jacoby Ellsbury is better than Grady Sizemore and Jackie Bradley Jr.
And Pedroia, and the wrist is a factor, not having the start that you expect from him. And Ortiz is hitting down in the 230s, and Nava struggling, and Gomes is struggling. It's kind of if hitting is contagious, is slumping contagious too?
Well, it appears so. Yeah, it's. Because now you're trying to pick your other guys up. If you're the second hitter, you're trying to pick up the leadoff hitter. If you're the third hitter, you're picking up the second hitter. And, you saw Pedroia. How many times with the runner on second, no outs, well, he ground out to third base. That's usually a spot where, he will hit the ball the other way, get the runner over. Then Ortiz hits the hard ground ball. You got to run.
But it's a long season.
That's why they play 162. Yeah. But they're pitching, they can reel off, 10, 12 wins in a row, and then you think, okay, well, here they come. That's the Red Sox we know and love.
Well, this is a pretty good time for them to start heating up, assuming the weather's eventually going to start heating up at some point. But they're in a stretch of 15 out of 18 at home. This is just game 3 in that stretch of 15 out of 18 at home. And everybody knows that when the Red Sox are good, they're awfully tough to beat in this ballpark. Funny things happen in the bottom of the 8th and bottom of the 9th in this ballpark. Davis now going behind the runner with 2 down and a full count. Bogarts will be on the move. 3-2 the count on Sizemore. Runner goes, and a pop-up. And that's the inning. Another man left on. 5 completed. Fenway still 4-0 Orioles, with a marathon coming tomorrow. In Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN with John Kruk, Buster Olney. I'm Dan Schulman. A 4-0 lead for the Orioles over the Red Sox in the third of a 4-game series. They'll meet again tomorrow morning, bright and early, on Patriots Day, Marathon Day here in Boston, 11:05 Eastern Time, local time start. Eastern and local time start. Jake Peavy is on the mound. Gave up 3 in the first and 1 more in the fifth. This is his 4th start of the season. Yet to pick up a decision of any kind coming into this game tonight. Has thrown 83 pitches through 5. He will face Ryan Flaherty, the number 9 hitter in the Baltimore lineup. Then Nick Markakis and Nelson Cruz. And a strike to Flaherty, who's 0 for 2. The Orioles, after so many consecutive losing seasons, made the playoffs 2 years ago. Beat Texas in the wild card game, took the Yankees to 5 in the division series. Then last year had a good season, but slipped back a little bit, did not qualify for the postseason. But Buck Showalter seems to really like the group that he has and has had in recent years. And they've got some young pitching potentially on the way, guys like Dylan Bundy later in the year once he gets healthy, recovering from Tommy John surgery, Kevin Gausman. And Buck's having fun. Loves to talk baseball. Loves to talk baseball.
It's a great conversation when he calls you on the phone.
Will never foul off the bat of Flaherty.
Johnny, give me 10 minutes and don't say a word. It's beautiful.
And you complied.
I don't say a word. He doesn't know I don't have the phone to my ear the whole time, but
he loves everything in the game. The big stuff, the small stuff, the stuff nobody else thinks of.
He told me the thing he thought helped his infielders more than anything was they got a stopwatch like they use in the Olympics, and they put it behind first base. And, you know, it's a big clock so you can see it in the infield. And anytime they hit a grounder, they would start the clock and show the guys how much time they really do have, that they don't have to rush. And, you know, you watch J.J. Hardy catch a ground ball. Sometimes it doesn't look like he's going to throw it at all, but as long as it beats him by a step, that's all that matters. And he swears that helps his infield. It's helped their infield defense.
Left center field. And Sizemore back. It's off the scoreboard. And Flaherty on his way into second base with a double off the monster. Let's give you a couple of scores from games. We came on an hour early here tonight, so some of the games weren't finished by the time that we came on the air. These games were still in progress. But the Dodgers beat Arizona 4-1 today. Josh Beckett threw 5 shutout innings, gave up just 1 hit, walked 2, struck out 7 in the Dodger win, and Oakland won again. They beat Houston 4-1. The A's are now 13-5 on the young season. Remember the pitching injuries they suffered early in the year, and
they just keep bringing in youngsters that
throw
as good as the rest. It's amazing what they've done with their farm system.
And you just keep plugging holes. And today was Jesse Chavez who picked up the win, as Chris Capuano is now up in the Red Sox pen. Luke Gregerson got the save. They got a good bullpen too. Sean Doolittle got 4 outs for them today. Just outstanding pitching again for the A's, and a team that seems to have a knack for picking up those big wins. You see a lot of, as you watch highlights on Baseball Tonight, you seem to see a lot of A's celebrating at home plate after some pretty exciting wins. They use every one of those 27 outs they get. There's a pop-up off the bat of Markakis, and Pedroia is there for the out as we send it down to Buster.
Guys, given the level of payroll that the Oakland Athletics have, they're never going to have high-priced superstars. But what Billy Beane, their general manager, has told me is we just want to collect a lot of really good players. And so they'll have platoons, they'll have different guys with different strengths, and they really believe that the last 5 guys on their roster might be the best in baseball because of the depth they have on their team.
And they all seem to really enjoy being on that team. They got a little bit of 90, just a little bit of 93 Phillies in.
Well, they got some hair, that's for sure. But Yeah. That's what you like when you watch them play, is that they seem to enjoy themselves. And the other night with the Jed Lowry bunting and down 7, it's the first inning. Do you have that much confidence in your team that you can't score, that you're going to get upset with a guy bunting? Yeah. If anyone should be upset, it should be Bob Melvin for a guy bunting with a runner on first and 2 outs.
I think Lowry's point to...
Yeah, you're not stopping him to shift.
Right, if you shift,
so why should I stop the bunting? Yeah. And I agree.
Cruz is 2 for 3, including a home run tonight. A high fly ball to right field. Nava with room, tagging at second, Flaherty. And into third, now 2 down. That'll bring up Chris Davis.
Well, Chris Davis' 2 at bats. Here's one, first one right here. You see Jake Peavy trying to pound him in with hard stuff, and he gets him to get jammed and roll over grounder to first baseman Mike Napoli. And then in the 5th inning, he starts to go away from him. Everything's away, but Chris Davis is swinging because he thinks it's it. And he gets a pitch down out of the strike zone, and he hooks it and grounds out to second base. And that's the issue you have when you're a big power hitter is, where are they going to approach me? How are they going to pitch to me? And right now, if you're Chris Davis, you have to think, okay, they got to be coming inside. Because if you look with Flaherty on third base and you look at this shift, I think you could hit one through there, Dan.
I don't know about that. Because the runner's at third, Holt's got to stay close. Now the gaping hole is at short.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big one.
So if you were Chris Davis,
I'm looking in. There's no way if he pitches me away and I get fooled and hit a topper over his head, it's a base hit and an RBI. So,
but you're still looking in and trying to pull the ball if it's in, right?
Well, I think you have to. Well, yeah, him I would. I mean, he's got power. Try to hit one around that pesky pole. I think old Buck's going to turn him loose right here, but they're going to walk him because you see all the infielders starting to scramble. Look at that. It's like Canadian football where everyone can go in motion at the same time.
That's a good reference, Crucky. Well done. So Davis draws the intentional walk as we take a look now at Do More. Brought to you by Safeco. And I don't know that Chris Davis could do any more than he did last year for the Baltimore Orioles, becoming just the 3rd player in baseball history with 50-plus homers and 40-plus doubles in the same season. You make a graphic with the Babe, you had yourself a year.
Any graphic with the Babe, pitching, hitting, power, average. It's a pretty impressive year. And that's what Buck told us today. He said, if he hits 30 homers this year and drives in 100 runs, people are going to say, what happened to him?
Here's Adam Jones. As Buck Showalter said, if the biggest problem they have is Chris Davis, they don't have any problems at all. They're going to have a pretty good season. He's completely convinced that there are no issues and people shouldn't be dwelling too much on the fact that he only has 1 home run. Jones with a base hit into left field to bring in another run. Flaherty scores. Davis to second. 5-0 Orioles. And John Farrell has made the move. So the roughest outing of the young season for Jake Peavy. Chris Capuano will take his place when we come back. is brought to you by the Hyundai 100,000 Reasons event, now through April 30th. And Bayer Back and Body, the official pain reliever of MLB. A moving night, an emotional night here at Fenway Park with a pregame ceremony with Patriots Day and the marathon coming tomorrow, and many of the first responders, many of the people who were injured in the bombings last year on field as part of the ceremony, as tribute was paid to the 4 people who lost their lives, 3 of them in the bombings and the 1 police officer at MIT. And there will be more ceremony and emotion tomorrow morning here at Fenway Park, and no doubt along the marathon route as well. Chris Capuano went to the game. 8th appearance of the season for a guy who spent the last couple of years with the Dodgers, and he's done a very nice job out of the bullpen so far for the Red Sox. They'll turn Matt Wieters around to the right side.
Well, Capuano's job right now is damage control. Keep it at 5 runs. Still manageable at 5, but a big hit by Wieters. Cash this one in early. I take that back. Last year it might have been manageable for the Red Sox. This year 5 runs seems to be a lot for them.
They're averaging 3.6 runs per game.
So then the game's over. Interesting.
He knows it'll come, but got to be a little frustrating, or maybe just more confusing than anything else, to see so many of his hitters struggling so far. Towards right field, Nava makes the catch to end the inning. But Peavy's out. Another run for the Orioles. It is now 5-0 Baltimore. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Bottom of the 6th inning at Fenway, the Orioles 5 and the Red Sox nothing in the 3rd game of a 4-game series. And 2-3-4 coming up for Boston. Dustin Pedroia, David Ortiz, and Mike Napoli. Pedroia didn't like the call. Against Ubaldo Jimenez, who through 5 innings has given up 2 hits, 2 walks, and has struck out 5. Looking for his first win of the season. To his right, Scope. One down. Now Ortiz 0 for 2. The home run he hit yesterday, Kroenke, was the 434th of his career.
I don't know how many of those were clutch ones, too. Has a knack.
How about that?
Smart.
How about that? Was that for fun or was that for real?
I think if it would have been a strike, he might have tried to push it down the third base line and get on base. You know, solo home run here would be great, but they need multiple runs. One run's not going to do it.
Play 1 and 2. And another big slugger on the putting up some big numbers on the verge of a milestone. Albert Pujols is up to 498.
Yeah, I hope he hits one on, let's say, Thursday or Friday. Friday if they play, Thursday. And that way when we get him Sunday night.
Pujols, Tanaka at 499.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, now with 2 strikes, Flaherty over there playing deep short. The third baseman doesn't have to worry about the bunt.
Liner into right center, a base hit. Jones will cut it off. Nicely done to hold Ortiz to a single.
Well, you know about the timing of David Ortiz with the leg kick and the dropping and the popping back of the hands, but this is about as good as you get right there. Look at the balance. Look at the extension through the zone after contact and how he just stays on that ball and drives it. Now, if you shift that one and they catch it, then it's time to retire. But Adam Jones, I mean, this is an unbelievable play to keep it. David Ortiz at first base, who's not the fastest runner, but now the double play still in order for Ubaldo Jimenez.
And Mike Napoli is the batter, a strikeout and a fly ball.
Doesn't he hit a home run every Sunday night?
He has hit a home run in his last 4 Sunday night games.
5-2? Why not? I'll go out on a limb.
By Sunday night standards, he's due.
Yes. (2-0). Here's the magic pitch, Dan. We're going to go out and call one right here, right over the
monster.
Right over the monster. Sports Authority.
Light tower power.
Well, I don't know. It's a little cold to be carrying that far.
Turn him loose?
Nope. Can't.
Because you're down?
Down 5.
Yep.
Johnny Gomes just hit a double his last at bat, so you got to. The last thing you want to do is for Napoli to be over aggressive 3-0 and pop one up on a high pitch and pop it up and miss out on an opportunity. Now he's swinging. Gruesome injury. He's
finger.
Oh yeah, that dislocated ring finger.
Only missed 1 game.
No, I talked to him. He said luckily he's caught everything perfect with playing first base in the pocket.
And that's ball 4. 2 on with 1 out. Zach Britton, who has been outstanding out of the Orioles pen so far this year, is now up.
I'm sure Buck would like to get out of this inning with Ubaldo still in the game.
And over 100 pitches, 102 right now.
5 1/3 innings, no runs, 102 pitches.
Johnny Gomes. And a visit coming from Dave Wallace, the pitching coach. You think this is your last batter one way or the other, or all we need from you is 1 or 2 more?
It might be more of a conversation, Dan, where he's just telling him, look, you got a 5-run lead. You know, last thing you want to do is give up a 3-run homer, but last thing you want to do is to walk him and have Nava take you deep. So throw the ball over the plate. And let's like our deep. We got the best defense in the American League. Let's let him work.
Ortiz singled. He's at second now after the walk to Napoli. 1 out of the inning. 5-0 Baltimore with the Red Sox batting in the bottom of the 6th. Challenged him above the belt. 1-1 the count.
There you go. You know what? If he hits it out, he hits it out. But you can't keep walking guys or get behind all these guys. Get ahead, and then it opens up the strike zone for his secondary pitches.
And 2.
You want to get a new one there.
How does this feel on a cold night?
Well, not good at all, but that's one where Johnny Gomes is thinking, okay, this is a slider, a breaking ball, so it's going to break away, and it runs in on him. And yeah, that didn't hit far above that top hand, right hand. That probably a little jittery right now. Johnny Gomes probably don't feel a thing.
Yeah, tough guy. Inside. Velocity hasn't come down at all for Jimenez here in this game. That last pitch 93. Ortiz and Napoli aboard. And the breaking ball's hit high in the air down the left field line. And it is gone. So a big hit the Red Sox were looking for has them back in the game now, trailing 5-3, and that will signal the end of the night for Ubaldo Jimenez as Johnny Gomes sends one over the monster for his 2nd home run of the season. Well, Johnny Gomes has given the Red Sox a spark, a 3-run home run. Just fair, just over the monster off Ubaldo Jimenez.
Yeah, the pitch sequence to Johnny Gomes. You can see right here, Matt Wieters wants the ball away, but every pitch is riding in on Johnny Gomes. That pitch right there is supposed to be down and away. It's up and over the center of the plate. That's a breaking ball that backed up on him, then a fastball up and in. So, I mean, if you're Johnny Gomes, what are you looking for? You're looking for something middle in because that's the only place he's located, and that's a hanging breaking ball. We said, you know, once you establish in, you can go away with the soft stuff, but you have to get it away, not up in the zone. You're asking for trouble, and Johnny Gomes gave Ubaldo some trouble on that at bat.
So Gomes brings the Red Sox within 2 with 1 out here in the 6th inning, and the new pitcher's left-hander Zach Britton. Daniel Nava turns around to bat for the right side against Britton, who has been almost unhittable so far this year out of the Orioles pen. A guy who has been a starter and maybe at some point in the future will be a starter, but he's been so valuable out of the bullpen right now. They want to leave him in the role that he's in as Nava hits a little chopper to the left side. Big hop for Flaherty and an easy play for the second out. So Jimenez can still pick up a win. He leaves with a 2-run lead here in the 6th inning. And this was definitely improvement compared to his first 3 starts, although the numbers didn't wind up where he'd like them to.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, you know, if you're Dave Wallace, the pitching coach, and Buck Showalter, of course, you're happy with his performance, but you're not happy with how that last inning played out with, you know, once again, missing location badly and getting hurt. And you know, if he's your number one and he's giving you 105 pitches and 5 1/3 innings, there has to be some way to figure out to cut that down so he can go deeper into the game. They're playing 11 o'clock tomorrow, and they're going to have to use about 4 guys out of their bullpen to get this game finished.
Xander Bogaerts, the batter with 2 down. Bogaerts tonight a strikeout and a base hit. He continues to draw walks. He has reached base in 11 of his last 18 plate appearances and shows uncommon poise for a 21-year-old player. Long-term shortstop or third baseman? Like right now they've committed to shortstop, but he's a big shortstop. Do you think eventually he winds up at third?
I think it's just a wait and see. You know, how much does he grow? And if he does grow more, is his range going to diminish? And if it does, we move him to third. You know, there's nothing that tells me he can't play shortstop for a while.
Nice job by Britton to get a couple of outs and end the inning with the Orioles still leading, but it's a lot closer here now after Jimenez gives up the long ball to Gomes. Baseball's biggest stars are scheduled to visit and appear in Fan Cave videos. Check out all the latest cave happenings at MLBFancave.com. Follow at MLB Fan Cave on Twitter and like the MLB Fan Cave on Facebook. Follow every Major League Baseball game with MLB.com at bat. For your iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry 10 or Windows Phone 8, text at bat to 31826 or visit MLB.com for details. Top 7, Orioles 5, Red Sox 3. And Steve Lombardozzi is up pinch hitting for J.J. Hardy. So we'll have to wait and see if we can find out what the situation is there.
I think Hardy's had some stiffness in his back the last few days, and it flared up on him.
And Lombardozzi strikes out. Now David Lowe 1 for 3 with an RBI double and a very nice catch out in left field earlier tonight as well. After the game tomorrow, the Orioles will head up to Toronto, a 3-game series there midweek. The Red Sox will stay home and entertain the Yankees Tuesday through Thursday. Capuano quick off the mound and in time at first to get Lowe. So 2 quick outs here in the Baltimore 7th. And the batter will be Jonathan Scope. It is going to be spring eventually, right?
That's the rumor. That's
like eventually.
The Bostonians I've been talking to the last couple of days, they swear it's going to be.
Scope's 0 for 3. What's worse, playing games that are in the 30s or games that are in the 90s?
On April, you'd love to play a game in the 90s, but
what did you hate more, the cold or the?
I hated the cold.
You hated the cold more?
Yeah.
How about Capuano?
He likes the cold.
1, 2, 3, they go. Guys, it's cold.
I don't know how many championship parades come to a halt. Ours did, and it stopped right before the Boston Marathon finish line.
Doing that, we're trying to show everybody that that's the way that the marathon was supposed to be finished.
That's a magical moment. Every time I walk down that area right now, I'm like, man, that's where we set the trophy down. Versus before, you know, it was like, oof, that's where that bomb was.
And earlier tonight, a moving ceremony here at Fenway Park. As many of the people who were injured in the blasts, along with people who will be running, did run, first responders, medical personnel, law enforcement officials, and so many other people who were involved in and touched by the events of a year ago were on the field for a pregame ceremony. It is Patriots Day and Marathon Day tomorrow here in Boston. We go to the bottom of the 7th now with the Red Sox trailing the Orioles 5-3 and a number of defensive changes for the Orioles. Jonathan Scope, who was at second, will move to third. Ryan Flaherty, who was at third, moves to short. And Steve Lombardozzi, who came on for J.J. Hardy, and we speculate maybe the back acted up on him a little bit. He will stay in the game at second base. Zach Britton is still on the mound for the Orioles. It'll be Pierzynski, Holt, and Sizemore. 8, 9, and 1 in the Boston lineup. Pierzynski tonight is 0 for 2. All the offense for Boston coming in the bottom of the 6th inning on a 3-run home run by Johnny Gomes. The Orioles got 3 in the 1st, including a solo shot by Nelson Cruz, and added single runs in the 5th and the 6th. Let's go down to Buster.
Hey guys, the word on J.J. Hardy from the Orioles is he has a right hamstring strain. They're saying he's day-to-day.
Buster, thank you. An important guy, has power, catches everything he gets to, good defensive player. They've got some versatility, they've got some quality backups, but as Pierzynski strikes out for the first out of the inning, and Zach Britton has looked very sharp since coming into the game. Pierzynski continues to struggle. Now 1 for his last 20 as Brock Holt comes up. A walk and a strikeout. Scope in at third.
When Zach Britton came up to the big leagues, they thought they had a legitimate number 2, number 3 starter, possibly as his career goes on, and number 1. And just didn't work out for him. Had some injuries, and now in the bullpen, looks like a nice home has been found.
They've got Troy Patton, another reliever who's coming back from injury. Could have him back in a week or 10 days. And against some young arms, the big names are Gausman and Bundy. Bundy coming back from Tommy John surgery, won't be ready for at least a couple of months, but it looks like there is some help coming from the farm buster. All right, we'll get back to Buster in a second. Out back. Let's go down to Buster again.
Guys, you see Britton with that sinker. Yesterday I asked Tommy Hunter about the quality of that, and I said, who's got a better sinker for a left-hander in baseball coming out of the bullpen? He said, the only one I can think of is Johnny Ventures. This year he's faced 43 batters, has allowed just 4 hits and 4 walks.
And a guy who can give multiple innings out of the pen as well. Troy Patton, by the way, is coming back from an amphetamine suspension. That's a 25-game suspension, so he'll be back from that shortly. And then Bundy and Gausman are a couple of guys, you know, tremendous potential, high ceilings, and Bundy coming back from Tommy John, as we mentioned, but Guys, the Orioles are extremely high on his Holt shoots one up the middle of the base hit.
The luxury of having a couple guys in your bullpen that go multiple innings. They're made for days like this when your pitcher only goes 5 1/3. You need someone to come in and give you a couple. And I'm sure that's what the Orioles are hoping out of Zach Britton is give us a couple innings, let us mix and match in the bullpen till the end of the game.
Tying run at the plate in the 7th. Sizemore 0 for 2 with a walk. And a strike.
It seems like there's been a lot of people, pitchers, hitters, unhappy with the strike zone. Hadn't been that bad to me, Dan.
There's one, and well, called safe. And are we going to have another review situation on the transfer play, which has been one that has generated a lot of discussion in the last few days? Did Flaherty have control of the ball long enough to warrant that being called an out? You can see Buck Showalter looking into the dugout, trying to hear from his folks. Should they appeal? Should they ask for a replay here?
Catch. So if that's not a transfer, then what is?
So you're saying he had it. It should be an out.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he catches the ball.
He's got
he
the ball.
brings it, a foot and a half down to his throwing hand, and he doesn't get it in his throwing hand. He drops it. Come on.
And you keep hearing that this is a play that Major League Baseball reportedly is going to be discussing and maybe modifying the strict definition of this so that common sense can dictate that was a catch.
But that's the thing. Dan, if you appeal this play, or if you whatever they do, how are they going to change it? How can they change that call? Because there's no proof that he had it in his hand, or he called him out or he called him safe, and there's no way you can prove otherwise. I don't care what video says. I mean, look, because if what we saw is not out, then there's no way they can change it.
Buster, what do you got?
Well, guys, those conversations started in the last week, and they'll continue this week. They're going to be talking with some umpires, but that transfer rule that they're going to talk about is a lot for outfielders.
Here's Pedroia. And obviously, had Buck Showalter felt there was an opportunity for the call to be overturned, he would have asked for an appeal or for a review.
This whole thing's a mess, kind of, really, if you want to be honest.
John Farrell's had his issues
big
with it as
fan
well.
Of replay, big fan.
Meanwhile, Pedroia and a base hit into right field. And the bases are loaded with 1 out. Now look who's coming up.
Number 34, David Ortiz.
Just a little bit of success with the bases loaded in his career for Ortiz.
Just a little. And this is, where you hope that the nasty sinker from Zach Britton, if you're an Orioles fan, comes into play. Because if he hits it on the ground at someone, it's a double play.
Hits it on the ground, but hard into right field. 1 run home. And Sizemore will be held, so it's a 1-run game here in the 7th.
Zach Britton trying to throw that sinker, but it stays up in the zone too high. You want that ball down, starting at the knees and breaking down lower, and it just didn't do it.
Buck Showalter saying, talk to him, buy me a little time here. Evan Meek is up in the bullpen right now.
Well, here, normally with the shift on David Ortiz, you see how they had to play right here because of the bases loaded. They had to play a double play depth. They couldn't have the big shift where they have the second baseman out in shallow right field. If so, it's a run, but an out at first base.
And now Buck's going to make the move. One would think. And the signal has been made. So Meek will come in. Ortiz with a base hit to drive and a run to bring the Red Sox within 1 as they continue to mount a comeback here at Fenway. Red Sox with a run in and threatening. The bases are loaded with 1 out. They once trailed 5-0. It's now 5-4. And Mike Napoli is the batter against the new reliever for the Orioles, right-hander Evan Meek. Napoli tonight, a strikeout, a fly ball, and a walk.
Remember what we said about the homers on Sunday night? How big would this one be?
He's homered in 4 consecutive Sunday night games. 5 in all in those 4 games. Ground ball to third, coming home. And safe at the plate, the game is tied.
I can honestly say I've never seen a third baseman play that deep and then come home with this ball, especially with a guy like Grady Sizemore running. But if he makes a good throw, he's out. Wieters luckily played this thing like a first baseman and knocked it down and kept in front of him, or else 2 runs could have scored on this play if it gets past him. An interesting play. He made it up his mind to go home. I think right there you got to try to get an out somewhere and try to turn the double play, because Napoli's not the fastest guy in the world.
Would you have say step on third, throw to first, or throw to second? I would have thrown to second,
because you got a guy on first in Ortiz who's not very fast, and Napoli runs better than Ortiz, but he's not a burner. You got to take that chance.
Second error in the inning on the Orioles, who had committed only 4 on this season coming in, and the game is tied at 5.
The guy who got him back in this game up at the bat with a big 3-run homer.
Outside, ball 2. Now remember, the first error was charged to Flaherty, the ruling being that he didn't have possession of the ball as he tried to get it out of his glove into his bare hands to try to start a double play. Scope just made a bad throw to the plate. They're on the edge of their seats here right now, Cracky.
I think Johnny Gomes is on the edge of something too. I've never seen anyone hit one that far foul.
It's 3 balls and a strike. And man, is this a dangerous pitch, because if you're Gomes, you can almost bank on a fastball here, can't you?
Well, you would hope. As a hitter, you would hope that it's a fastball. Let me tell you something. As far as he was ahead of that breaking ball that he hit foul, he throws a fastball right here, we might see a 9-5 game.
Threw him a slider for a strike.
Wow. That's amazing. That's gutsy, but effective.
Got Johnny thinking right now, doesn't he?
Well, now Johnny's like in 2-strike protect mode right here.
Playable for Wieters. And a big second out for the Orioles.
The first pitches look like sliders or cutters, and he's trying to throw one after another. That seems to be the pitch that he's going to try to get Gomes out with. You think on a 3-1, you're always told if he throws a 3-1, he's out liable to throw a 3-2, and he did. But this one stayed inside, and Johnny Gomes jammed himself on that one, popped it up to Wieters, and now we have some interesting things going on here, Dan.
Bases loaded, 2 outs, tie game, and the batter is Nava 0 for 3 and down to 129 on the season. And out of his hands for ball 1.
I mean, the Red Sox came in this inning 5-3. It seems like they've scored 10 runs this inning.
A little controversy out at second base, then a throwing error on Scope. 6 errors this year committed by the Orioles. 5 of them have come from the third base position. And the other one's the controversial one, the transfer play that we saw out at second.
I'm staying out of that one. They got to fix that.
what will happen is middle infielders will start being much more deliberate trying to turn double plays, because replay seems to have changed the way that play is called. 1-2.
Well, there's some guys that just try to bounce the ball off their glove into their hand, and you know, last year they were getting that call. Oh no, that's a transfer, which really isn't, because they never caught the ball. But Flaherty caught the ball.
Now, John Farrell will tell you there have been a couple of calls that have gone against the Red Sox this year. So replay giveth and replay taketh away. Time called at the last moment. Three in the sixth, two more here in the seventh, and the Red Sox have come back from a 5-0 deficit to tie it.
At least she can watch now. 5-0. She was not peeking at a lot of things.
And they'll do it again. Over. Meek gets Nava, but not before the Red Sox get two more runs into the end of 7, tied up at 5. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell Breakfast. Wake up, live Moss. And in part by Chevrolet. Celebrate the new season with Chevrolet. Share your excitement using hashtag the new. Well, we get a brand new game here at Fenway. From 5-0 Baltimore, all of a sudden now it's tied up at 5. Top of the 8th inning, Ryan Flaherty will lead it off. Flaherty was the player charged with the error. The ruling out at second base being that he did not catch the ball or did not have possession of the ball long enough before trying to transfer it to his bare hand in an effort to try to turn a double play. Instead, they get nothing. And Rule 2.00, definition of terms, a catch is the act of a fielder in getting secure possession in his hand or glove of a ball in flight and firmly holding it. That's not the entire definition. We'll get to more as time allows. There's a base hit. Just over a leaping hole, and big turn, but intent with a leadoff single is Flaherty. Now there's some other stuff about it you can't use if you contact a wall, collide with a player. The last line, as you get another look, the last line is, in establishing the validity of a catch, the fielder shall hold the ball long enough to prove that he has complete control of the ball and that his release of the ball is voluntary and intentional.
Right there, and then take a right when the ball go to home.
So that's a catch. He caught it. He brought it down to his throwing hand. When he tried to put it in his throwing hand, he dropped it.
Here's Markakis. It feels to me like pre-replay that would have been called an out.
Without question.
That replay has changed the way that particular play is judged. Markakis 0 for 2 with a couple of walks.
Because there's a security of replay that I can call this safe, and if they want to challenge it, then they'll go to replay, and replay will figure it out.
Again, did he have secure possession of the ball, and was it voluntary and intentional that the ball was coming out of his glove? And I mean, you've got to get the ball out of your glove fast to try to turn a double play.
Well, you know, the whole thing with the you know, the area play or whatever, you know, the neighborhood play is to protect the shortstop. Now you're going to make them have to catch the ball, deliberately take it out of their hand, and now you're going to, you know, if the neighborhood play is supposed to keep them safe, then this, whatever rule this is called, is going to be the one that gets them hurt.
There's another line in there that says if the fielder has made the catch and drops the ball while in the act of making a throw following the catch, and that's exactly what we had here, the ball shall be adjudged to have been caught. So the issue is how long. There's some subjectivity here. There's some gray area. How long does it have to be in the glove? What is secure? What constitutes securely in the glove?
Apparently not that.
Yeah. Down to Buster again.
I love you.
All right, we'll get back to Buster in a moment. 5-5 tie, top 8. And the leadoff man aboard here for the Orioles. Buster, you there?
Yeah, guys,
there we go.
I think what basically, from hearing from other managers, they talk about how they've lost the sense of how that play is called. That there is uncertainty with that. As you could see, Buck was angling his body to see the signal he was getting from the dugout. He didn't get it. There also, in talking with people around baseball, is a sense that that play is judged differently when it's slowed down so much because the actions of the fielders are so quick.
Right.
That's the same type of problem that they had in the NFL with similar type plays with a quarterback releasing the ball.
So it looks more like a catch in slow motion, is what you're saying, I think.
Or a drop.
Right. Buster, do you hear that baseball may make some changes in the replay system, not necessarily this play, but soon? Is this something that could be coming?
They could discuss this transfer rule and a change sometime by the end of the month. That's what I've been told. But what's interesting is that the transfer play that you're talking about, the adjustments to how they've been calling it, they're discussing mostly for outfielders.
Now, I think baseball was very upfront and justifiably so, in saying, hey, it's not going to be perfect. This is new for everybody. There's going to be some trial and error.
Do you think?
I think everybody's glad that more calls are now being called correctly than before, but I think everybody says there's still room for improvement.
I understand. Yes, I completely understand. Yeah. But now, if you're going to change it to say, okay, well, you know, we looked at it. That play now will be called a catch. You know, when does it end? Like, you know, do the Orioles say, well, wait a second, if that's considered a catch, let's go back and replay that game because we had 2 outs now. Yeah. You know, and if you're the Red Sox who, you know, the ball down the left field line, hey, we want to play that game over again. It's, you know, you can't change it in the middle. You have to fix it, but you can't change it. There's a fine line.
To the bullpen for Junichi Tozawa. It's just, I think, more than the other sports. As much as you can plan for this kind of play and this kind of play and this kind of play, the baseball gods are going to dictate there's going to be stuff you can't plan for. And that play right there has turned into one of the most talked about kinds of plays so far this year.
Yeah, and again, it's confusing to me because all they talked about with the neighborhood play, we're going to allow the neighborhood play because we want to protect the middle infielders. I understand that. You better protect them. You should protect them. But now with this call that's being made now, players are going to have to stand there and catch the ball and make sure they have it in their hand in order to be considered a catch. So that's going to take a split second longer. And a split second longer means either getting the throw off in time or getting taken out at second base. Right. What do they want? What does baseball want to cover with this? Who do they want to protect?
I mean, what's happening now is infielders are having to retrain themselves on how to make a play they've made their whole lives. They now have to make it differently.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the catcher. We have to retrain the catcher. Well, we don't want to do it during the season, but you're making the infielders do it during the season. And now you might make them go back and do it some other way if they change the rule.
If they're going to make changes for the better, would you like to see them do it as soon as possible? Can you do it? Can you just wake up next Thursday and say, things are different now?
You can't, because now the teams that have been affected by these rulings, by these issues, are going to say, wait a second, you're going to go back now and change it when we just, you know, maybe lost a game because of it? You took a game away from us, but now you think, okay, that didn't work, so let's change it and fix it. You got to let it go now, play out through the season and fix it in the offseason. That's why they have the Arizona Fall League. Figure it out in the Arizona Fall League. You know, get these things intact, let everyone know.
Meanwhile, into the game for the Red Sox is right-hander Junichi Tozawa. Part of one of the best 8th, 9th inning combos in baseball, along with Koji Uehara. Tozawa this year, this is his 10th appearance already. And he has not given up a run. 8 2/3, 7 hits, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. He and Uehara have combined for 16 scoreless appearances so far this year.
But 2 walks combined, and that's not going to cut it.
Uehara walked a guy yesterday for the first time since, what was it, last August? Nelson Cruz is the batter. Cruz homered back in the first inning.
Watch out for the first pitch. He's been going after it.
He goes after it and pops it up on the infield. And Pedroia's there for out number 2. Fenway Park in Boston. Here with Patriots Day tomorrow, the Boston Marathon tomorrow, an emotional ceremony prior to the game tonight. And then a ball game in which the Orioles got off to a very quick start, 3-0 lead in the first, up to 5-0 eventually. But the Red Sox have rallied to tie it at 5, and Junichi Tozawa throws 1 pitch, and his night is done. Left-hander Andrew Miller will be coming into the game to face Chris Davis, he of the 53 homers a year ago, when we come back. A home run for Nelson Cruz. And it is gone. On a chilly night here in Boston, the Red Sox have entertained their fans in the last couple of innings after being down 5-0. It's now tied at 5, top 8. Runner at first, 2 down, and Andrew Miller is into the game for Boston, making his 9th appearance of the season, 1-0 with a 1.35 ERA. Chris Davis at the plate, 0 for 6, 5 strikeouts in his career against the 6'7" left-hander Andrew Miller. Runner at first, Ryan Flaherty, and a strike to Davis. Slider, and Bucky is a left-handed batter. What's it like when a 6'7" lefty's throwing you a slider?
Well, it's a 6'7" that crossfires and throws 3/4, and he started the first one right at Chris Davis and broke it over the middle of the plate for strike 1. Okay, great pitch. And now he started it in the center of the plate and broke it away. And then just in case you want to set on it, let me go 96 in.
Missed a spot, but almost caught the inside corner.
Well, 96 you can miss your spot. But he's got to throw him another slider and hope it stays away.
It is another slider. Davis strikes out, and the inning is over. To the bottom of the 8th here at Fenway Park. The Red Sox bullpen getting the job done, giving the offense now a chance to take the lead. Bottom 8 at Fenway, tied at 5. After singing along to Sweet Caroline, as they always do, now the Red Sox fans hoping their team, which has climbed back from a 5-run deficit, can take the lead here this inning. They've got Xander Bogaerts to lead it off. 1 for 3 tonight, hitting .274 on the season. Evan Amick is back on the mound for the Orioles. Bottom third of the order. Bogaerts, Pierzynski, and Holt. Swing and a foul back, 1-2. Activity in the Baltimore pen. Left-hander Brian Mattis. And he may be called upon very soon.
Well, after Bogarts, there's 3 lefties with Pierzynski, Holt, and Sizemore.
Scope. 1 down. What's he going to do? Now, he did tell us and feels that Evan Meek is almost like having a lefty. He's a righty who's very good against left-handed batters. So it's not like he's afraid of having Meek face some lefties.
Yeah, the fear is here, though, with that short porch and right down the right field line by the pesky pole. With Meek throwing a lot of sliders, cutters, can AJ get out in front of one and hit one down that line?
Just 302 down the line. Juts out to 380 in a hurry, but if you can really pull it down the line, you don't have to hit it that far. Ground ball to second. 2 down. Now Brock Holtz. A walk, a strikeout, and a single.
Well, that guy looked awful high up to bring a glove. Wow. Apparently he thought his seats were better. It's like underneath the scoreboard or something, isn't it?
Hey, when you got guys like Napoli.
He's due.
Yep. Better safe than sorry.
Well, that's reachable. I think that other guy was like underneath the scoreboard in dead center, wasn't he? Maybe the camera's deceiving.
And another ground ball, but this one is foul, and it's a ball and 2 strikes now on a Holt. Looking ahead to the Baltimore 9th, it'll be 4, 5, and 6. Adam Jones, Matt Wieters, and then Steve Lombardozzi, who came on for J.J. Hardy. Had a slight hamstring issue that knocked him out of the game a couple of innings ago. Way outside, 2-2. 5 runs, 11 hits, 2 errors committed by the Orioles. They've left 10 men on base. 5 runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Red Sox. They have left 7 men on base. 3rd game of a 4-game series. Each team has claimed 1 victory so far. And it got late early for that fan.
Thinking we didn't start at 8. She'd have missed the whole game.
Oh, wait. No, just trying to stay warm. Full count. The leaders in the American League East, the Yankees, defeated Tampa Bay 5-1 today. Yankees are 11-8 right now. Blue Jays lost to Cleveland 6-4. A division where top to bottom is separated by only 2.5 right now. Fouled off. team with the best record in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers, won again today. They beat Pittsburgh 3-2 in a game marred by a brawl. Milwaukee taking 3 out of 4 in Pittsburgh. Carlos Gomez admired a ball he thought was out. It wasn't. Still had the speed to get to third, where he was met by the pitcher, Garrett Cole, who was unhappy with Gomez admiring his shot, and it got nasty. And a roller to first, scooped up by Davis to end the inning. 3 ground ball outs for Meek. End of 8. Orioles 5, Red Sox 5. Tied at 5 going to the 9th here at Fenway Park with John Kruk, Buster Olney. I'm Dan Schulman. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Earlier today, the game we were just speaking of, last half inning, the Brewers and the Pirates. Carlos Gomez, who has done this before, remember Brian McCann last year? Then he realizes he better get going, and Garrett Cole's almost following him around the bases. They exchange words, and then it is on. I mean, serious punches getting thrown. Gomez was ejected. Travis Snyder of the Pirates was ejected. And the Brewers taking 3 out of 4, improving their major league best record to 14-5. And 2 teams that'll see a lot of each other over the rest of the season.
Yeah, and there's a different way to handle that than what Garrett Cole did. You don't go yell at the guy. That's what he does. Gomez does that. If you don't like it that much, don't say anything to him. Just drill him the next time up. That's the way you settle it. You don't go yelling at him. That's what instigates these fights. You drill him and it's over. And you hope that someone in the Brewers dugout would let Gomez know, look, you're probably going to get drilled here. Accept it, go to first, and live with it.
Adam Jones to lead off the 9th for the Orioles. Jones has had a good night. He's 3 for 4. Has scored a run and driven in a run. He'll be followed by Matt Wieters and Steve Lombardozzi. Andrew Miller remains on the mound for the Red Sox, and Jones is 4 for 5. And he'll shoot this one down into the corner, and with his speed, he is on his way to second and in there with a leadoff double here in a tie game in the 9th inning. Now Matt Wieters.
You know, Matt Wieters' job, he knows what his job is, to try to hit the ball to the right side of the infield and get Adam Jones over to third base with only 1 out. But yeah, Andrew Miller's buried that slider in on Wieters' hands. That's going to be a tough one to hit that way.
Edward Mojica is up in the Red Sox pen. Now, Koji Uehara pitched yesterday. Walked a batter and then struck out 3 through 19 pitches. He didn't pitch the day before. You're at home, you get this far in a tie game, no more save situations. A lot of times you would see a closer pitch in the 9th inning here as Wieters does the job. The ground ball to the right side to advance the runner. But no sign of Uehara. So Miller on the mound, Mujica in the pen, and the go-ahead run now 90 feet away with a 1 out of the 9th inning.
And you remember the injury to J.J. Hardy. It took him out of the game. Now this was his spot in the lineup. And now you have Steve Lombardozzi up, a right-handed hitter, and I'm pretty sure Boston's going to play in and try to cut this thing off. Do we dare see a squeeze from Buck Showalter?
What do you think? Yeah, good speed at third.
It's hard with Andrew Miller because of his command.
Yeah. And they are way in on the infield.
Yeah, but that shouldn't affect your decision to call, because normally it's the pitcher who's going to have to field this one.
Now to play 1-1. Pitch by pitch, the strategy may be changing here as Buck Showalter continues to relay the signs.
Should ask him what his signs were. Not that I'd have remembered by now, but
two balls and a strike on Lombardozzi, and Delman Young has come out in the on-deck circle for the Orioles in David Lowe's spot.
well, that could be a decoy. And not to say that Delman Young won't hit if Lombardozzi doesn't do the job, but this could be one of those where, you know, you can't pitch around Lombardozzi now to get to the lefty low.
Two balls, two strikes on Lombardozzi with a go-ahead run at third base here in the top of the ninth.
If you're Lombardozzi right here, you just try to put the ball in play, make contact, and hope it finds a hole.
Weakly hit back towards the mound. Miller fields, fires, and gets him as Jones has to hold. And John Farrell is on his way out. And the right-hander Mujica will be coming into the game to face Young. Tied at 5, the Orioles looking for the lead. We have another situation here at Fenway Park. It appears that John Farrell called in the new pitcher Mujica before Delman Young was announced into the game as a pinch hitter. So Young is not in this game. David Lowe, who was going to be pinch hit for had things been done the way they always get done, is back out of the on-deck circle swinging a bat and getting ready to come to the plate.
And we're very certain we can't replay this.
That's true.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that's just, you know, John Farrell saw Delman Young in the on-deck circle, loosening up, getting ready to hit. Anticipated, okay, he's in the game. I'm going to go change my pitcher. And, you know, if it's not announced, then you're stuck.
So Buck Showalter stays with Lowe, the left-handed bat, to face the right-hander, Edward Mujica. Runner at third, 2 down, tied at 5, top 9.
You see Brock Holt still playing in for the bunt because Lowe has good speed. You know, not much of a power hitter, so you got to protect against a bunt play.
Now he can back up. Mujica, the former St. Louis Cardinal, was the closer for most of the year last year, saved 37 games for them before losing the job in September.
Well, this is where John Farrell's hoping Mujica gets Lowe out to save himself. You know, the thing about it is you know, it's a tough situation either way, because to me, Delman Young's the proven RBI guy, and you know, would you mind seeing him hit off Mujica right here? Probably not.
And it works out. To the bottom of the 9th in a tie game. The bottom of the 9th here at Fenway Park in Boston. The Red Sox are coming up at a 5-5 tie in the 3rd game of a 4-game series. They'll complete the series tomorrow on Patriots Day as the Boston Marathon is run as well simultaneously. The game will begin just after 11 locally here, and the marathon will start mid-morning depending on which wave of runners is going off, and then finish up mid to late afternoon depending on how long the runners take. Interesting game here tonight. Had a replay situation, had some controversy, and a big comeback by the Red Sox. They've got a chance now to win it in the bottom of the 9th. New pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles is left-hander Brian Mattis. And he'll face the top of the order for the Red Sox: Sizemore, Pedroia, and Ortiz. Sizemore tonight 0 for 3 with a walk. He scored a run, stolen a base. Scope off the line, but even with a bag at third, the rest of the infielders backed up. Outfielders straight away. Down and away, a ball and a strike. Darren O'Day, the very effective sidearmer, is up in the pen for the Orioles.
For Mike Napoli. If he gets that far.
And Johnny Gomes if it gets that far. Sizemore a little late, 1-2.
Well, here's the issue you have in games like this is you saw that swing by Grady Sizemore. That wasn't I'm going to hit a single and get on base and hope the guys can move me along. That's I'm going to win this game for my team. You get a lot of overswings.
And Sizemore strikes out. Now Pedroia.
Well, talking about overswings, you can never tell with Dustin Pedroia.
Ortiz moving into the on-deck circle. Pedroia tonight is 1 for 4. They play him to hit the ball the other way in the outfield. There's a lot of room down in that left field corner right now. If Pedroia can get out in front of one. A strike.
The thing you don't have to concern yourself with if the ball is hit down in that corner is a triple. It says 310.
High fly ball to deep left. And Pedroia on his way to second base. And we're going to have to get another look at that one. The signal, if I'm reading it right from the umpire, was the fan reached out into the field of play, so it should not be a home run. But now John Farrell wants to get a better look in some details. What a crazy game.
We've seen it all, Dan. We have seen it all. I mean, by watching it live, it did look like the fan reached over.
Yeah. Now, they don't need, from my understanding, they don't need to ask for a replay, and it does look like he reached over, although it's close. Well, this is a home run, was it or was it not? And that's the umpires go look at it. This doesn't cost you your replay.
Yeah, but the guy in the white sleeves with the bare hands reached out and whiffed on it. Watch him whiff on it. And then the guy with the black glove there underneath it is the one that actually touched it. And that ball's not over the wall.
Well, it would have to have been above that line to be considered a home run, and the call on the field was a double. I don't see how they can overturn this one.
Oh, if they do. They're probably thinking, oh boy, what do we say now? What do we do?
Well, these guys are just listening, right? It's the guys in New York making the call, so.
Yeah, but they're going to say, okay, how do we explain this to Buck?
From a distance.
Yeah, as we're walking into our locker room.
Can't imagine this one is going to get overturned.
Tell you what, though, it's taken a long time.
Crowd's starting to get a little more restless.
Well, I mean, this is a chilly night. You got Brian Mattis out there just trying to stay loose.
Yeah, this is one of the things they don't talk about a lot is the 3-4 minute delays and what that can do to the pitcher. I don't think we have a resolution. Double.
That takes the bat out of Big Poppy's hands. I think that's what the deceiving part was, is the guy with the white sleeve whiffed it, and the guy underneath with the black glove, but like it was underneath his outstretched arms, is the one who actually hit the ball below the gold line or yellow line.
They start chanting Poppy. Will they get a chance to swing the bat?
Wow.
Maybe because of those numbers. 1 for 20, 12 strikeouts against Mattis. Mattis will go after him. The official word we're getting from baseball is on the Pedroia hit that the video was inconclusive, so the call on the field stands as a double. O'Day continues to throw in the pen. Napoli, a right-handed batter's on deck. Gomes behind him should it get that far.
Well, here's another thing with the shift. You see the shortstop Flaherty right there. With him being so close and playing up the middle, look at the short lead that Dustin Pedroia has. Now, on a hard hit ball, there's no way you can score.
He's going for third and is in there as Wieters can't find the ball. The best defensive team in baseball is not having a banner night defensively.
There's a walk coming up to Ortiz right here. Wouldn't surprise me if they walk Napoli too.
Wild pitch, intentional walk. Napoli now. And this could be pitching change, or this could be deciding whether or not to walk him. Now, when now Buck is saying yes, they did make a change. So here comes the right-hander O'Day to face Napoli and Gomes. With runners at first and third, one out of the Red Sox looking to win it here in the bottom of the ninth. They were down 5-0. They've come back to tie. They came within inches of winning it here in the bottom of the ninth as Pedroia hit a double just inches away from a home run. Everybody wearing Red Sox white thought it had a chance, but it's not over yet. No, not true, Poppy, but they still have a chance to win it here. Mike Napoli heading to the plate. Tied at 5, bottom of 9. A tough side-arming right-hander Darren O'Day is in the game for the Orioles. Now, because they brought in O'Day here, if they're going to intentionally walk Napoli, they would have had Mattis do it. Then you bring in O'Day. You would think they don't want O'Day to walk him, so you'd think O'Day's going after Napoli here. With Pedroia at third, representing the winning run. Ortiz at first. There's 1 out in the inning. Napoli is 1 for 8 in his career against O'Day. Just missed, down and in. You can see by the way O'Day caught that ball back that he and Wieters both were hoping for a strike call.
Yeah, and if you're Mike Napoli right here, you got to tell yourself, keep my front shoulder in. I have to keep my front shoulder in, because your natural tendency when a guy throws sidearm like this is to give a little bit.
Oh, and he hit him. He hits Napoli on the outside of the left knee to load the bases, and Napoli's in some pain.
That got him right on the kneecap. Well, anyone who's ever experienced that, Dan, that's cold, warm, it doesn't matter. You get hit in the kneecap. It's one of the more painful places you can get hit.
O'Day doesn't throw 96, but 86 in the wrong spot on a cold night can do a lot of damage. He actually got his back leg out of the way, and it hit him in the front leg. Right on the bone.
There's not a lot of meat there.
Yeah.
Tell you what, anyone who questions this guy's toughness, they need to get examined, because with that finger injury and now this, and he's staying in the game.
So Napoli stays in the game. And still trying to jog off the pain down the first baseline a little bit. And we have a pinch hitter coming up for the Red Sox. Mike Karp is going to bat. A left-handed batter in there against O'Day. With the bases loaded, 1 out, the winning run at third here in the 9th inning, and he's had some success against O'Day. Infielders are in. Outfielders are in, especially Jones in center right now. Now he backs up a few steps. Lowe is going through a throwing motion out in shallow left center in anticipation of having possibly to make a throw to the plate. Karp trying to win it for the Red Sox here. And just missed, up and away, ball 1.
Yeah, I think the concern with Napoli staying in the game is, can he get down there quick enough to break up a double play? If Karp hits a sharp grounder to second base, it looks like they might try to turn 2.
Left field. Caught by Lowe. Pedroia now is coming home as the throw gets away and the Red Sox win it. get another look. His first step was to home, so he couldn't get back to tag in time. And then when he saw the throw get away, then he went home. And Buck Showalter has stopped the umpires on their way off the field.
Yeah, I read his lips. He said, I want to challenge that. I don't know what he's challenging. I don't know if he's challenging, did Pedroia leave early? Did he not go back to tag up? A lot of things that could be going on. But he wants, can you imagine if they challenge it and he wins it and they have to bring the Red Sox back out on the field? I mean, you see David Ortiz standing there staring, watching what's going on.
My understanding is, and again, we're all learning here at the same time, my understanding is that you cannot challenge whether a runner left too early. Now, he couldn't have left too early because he wasn't even at third base when Lowe caught the ball. We'll show you some replays. And you can see that umpires, managers, players, broadcasters alike are trying to get a full understanding of what can and can't be challenged. But I don't think there's anything to challenge here.
Well, Pedroia went back to the base immediately. See him go back, and he takes off and he stops. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's game over.
Yeah. What a weird game. Then he almost hit Wieters with his helmet. Well, let's go down to the field. Buster's with Dustin Pedroia.
Dustin, give me a read on that last crazy blow.